Hello, this is Whispers in the Rain. Welcome to tonight's story time, a collection of real stories pulled straight from the depths of Reddit. Dim the lights, let the rain drown out the world beyond your walls. And as you listen, remember, these are the stories people swear are true. Comment below where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. You've scrolled far enough. Now close your eyes and let the whispers begin. Story 1. The Static in Room 6. By you/Hotel Whispers. They say the human mind can fill in gaps when something doesn't make sense. It invents patterns, faces in the clouds, or whispers in white noise. That's comforting. What happened to me wasn't some trick of the brain. I heard what I heard. I saw what I saw, and it started with the static. I was working the night shift at the Windmere Inn, an old roadside motel in Vermont, the kind people only stop at when they're too tired to drive. Most rooms stay empty. The neon sign flickers. We offer free cable and stale coffee. I wasn't hired to care about customer service, just to keep the front desk from looking abandoned between midnight and 8 a.m. It was almost 2 a.m. when the monitor on the desk started buzzing. We had a CCTV feed of all the hallways and entrances, cheap black and white footage that ran with a 5-second delay. It was grainy, usually boring, but tonight something flickered on the screen of room SIXS hallway. Static. Not the usual blur or interference. This was focused, deliberate static. Like something or someone was interfering with just that one feed. Every other hallway was clear. Room 6, though, kept flashing to static every few seconds, then back again. Just long enough for me to notice something had moved. I leaned closer. There was definitely movement. A blur, maybe a shadow. I rewound the footage, slowed it down. One frame showed a dark figure just outside the door to room 6. It was gone. I checked the room list. Room 6 hadn't been rented out for weeks. A pipe had burst in the ceiling, and no one ever got around to fixing it. The room still smelled like mold and plaster. I got up, grabbed the backup key ring, and walked toward the west hallway. My footsteps echoed. The old carpet muffled the creaks, but the silence pressed in around me like cotton in the ears. The hallway light outside room 6 flickered, same rhythm as the front sign. Something about that rhythm started making my stomach churn. I reached the door. The air was colder here, noticeably colder. I placed my hand on the knob, paused, then turned it slowly. The door creaked open an inch. There was no smell, no mold, no rot, nothing. The air was dead, still like the inside of a sealed box. That's when I heard the static again. Not from the cameras this time. From inside the room. It was unmistakable. A low hiss, the crackling white noise buzz you hear on a dead TV channel. But there was no television in room 6. The set had been removed months ago after the ceiling leak. Still, the sound was real, unmistakable, coming from deeper within the room. I pushed the door open wider. The moonlight filtered through the broken blinds, striping the room with silver and black. The bed frame was bare, just a stained mattress with a depression in the center, as if someone had recently been lying there. The wallpaper was peeling, curling at the edges like old scabs. Dust motes danced in the still air, and in the far left corner, where the built-in cabinet once held the TV, the static was louder. There was nothing there now, just an empty shelf and a single coaxial cable dangling limply. But the sound came from that exact spot, a ghost of transmission echoing from nowhere. I reached for the light switch. Click. Nothing. Of course not. The bulb above the bed was smashed. Tiny shards littered the mattress like glittering snow. I took a step forward, and the static immediately surged like it knew I was getting closer. It began to fluctuate, whispering in bursts. Not just hissing, but voices. At first, they were layered and indistinct, buried in the noise. Then one cut through, sharp and childlike. Don't look. I froze. The voice had a clarity that didn't belong to static. It was inside it, like someone trapped behind a radio dial. My skin prickled. I didn't move. Don't look at it. This time, closer. Not from the shelf, but behind me. I turned fast. The room was empty. I backed up toward the hallway, every instinct screaming to run. But the sound stopped suddenly. The silence was somehow worse. I took a breath, heart hammering, and closed the door. As it latched, I heard the voice again, muffled by the wood. "It's behind your eyes." I ran. Back at the desk, I shut off the monitor and stared at my reflection in the dark screen. My face looked pale, stretched. My eyes, did they seem darker? I blinked rapidly. I told myself it was stress. Lack of sleep. Maybe I dozed off. But when I checked the footage again, room SXS hallway was back to normal. Like it had never happened at all. I told no one. What could I say? That an unoccupied room whispered to me in static and darkness? I needed the job. Besides, I convinced myself it was just a hallucination, sleep deprivation, maybe a fever dream. But the next night, the static returned. This time, I didn't go near room 6. I stayed planted behind the desk, eyes locked on the monitor. It began the same way. Flickers on the room 6 hallway feed, short bursts of interference, like someone playing with a signal. Then the image cleared and showed something impossible. The door to room 6 was ajar. I hadn't opened it. I made sure to pull it shut the night before, had heard it latch myself. Yet there it was cracked open just wide enough to reveal the edge of the frame and the dark beyond. And there was something else, a figure. Not clear, more like a shadow barely caught in the light of the hallway, standing just inside the room. I leaned forward. The screen fuzzed for half a second, then cleared again. This time, the figure was closer to the door, closer to the camera. I fumbled with the intercom switch that connected to the front of the motel. I had no idea what I was doing, just needed sound, any sound to ground me. Instead, the speaker hissed to life with static. And then, a whisper, "He's coming through." I shut it off immediately. By 4 a.m., the door on the feed was shut. The hallway was empty. The flickering stopped, but I didn't feel relief. Something had changed. It was subtle at first. How the light above the front desk dimmed slightly, how the clock ticked offbeat, how the vending machine behind me clicked like fingers tapping glass. At 6 a.m., as the sun rose, I got up to stretch and glanced out the front window. There was a smear on the glass, like condensation. I leaned in to wipe it with my sleeve. The words smeared in the fog chill me to my bones. "Do not rewind." I stepped back. The monitor flickered. My hand shook as I reached for the playback controls. I told myself I'd only go back a minute. Just a minute. But when I hit rewind, the camera feed didn't behave. Instead of rewinding, the screen filled with static, then a still frame. A face. Mine. Only the eyes were gone, replaced with black static bleeding outward like smoke. I slammed the monitor off. The office felt wrong now, like the air had thickened around me. Every instinct told me to run out the front door, but my feet stayed planted, like something unseen was watching, waiting for me to try. I couldn't explain it, but it was as if moving too fast would invite it. I sat back down, gripping the desk tightly, eyes flicking to the now dead monitor. My reflection stared back again, and once more, I had the awful sensation my eyes didn't match. One pupil seemed dilated, the other pinprick thin. I blinked hard, and it was gone. That morning, I handed off the desk to Marcy, the day shift girl. I didn't say anything. What could I say that wouldn't sound insane? She noticed, though. "You all right? You look pale. Didn't sleep much." "Shouldn't have touched room 6, she said absently, like she was joking, but didn't laugh. I froze. "What? Old superstition," she said with a half shrug, pulling her thermos from her bag. "Locals say that room's haunted. A kid died in there or something. Years ago. Some freak thing. Static on the TV, then poof, gone." "You mean like the static killed him?" Marcy sipped her coffee. "That's what they say. That whole day, her words ate at me. The thing in the static, the voice, the shadows. Was it trying to get through? What did he's coming through even mean? That night, I almost didn't go in. I sat in my car until 11:57 p.m., engine running, fingers on the ignition. But something gnawed at me. If I left, who would watch the feed? What if the thing moved beyond room 6? I clocked in. The monitor was already on when I entered. Room SXS hallway glowed, grainy and quiet. For hours, nothing happened. Then, just past 3 a.m., the screen cut out again. This time, no flickering, just total black. I tapped the keyboard. Nothing. I reset the camera, rebooted the feed, but but room SAXS camera remained offline. That's when I heard a low sound coming from the hallway itself. Not from a speaker, not from a monitor, from down the actual corridor. It was the same static hiss, but layered inside it was something worse breathing. Long, slow, like something massive inhaling through ruined lungs. I stood, body rigid, and turned toward the hallway. A figure stood at the end of it. It didn't move, just stood there at the far end of the hallway, with a single fluorescent bulb buzzed above. The light flickered like a dying heartbeat, and with each pulse, I caught a clearer glimpse. Tall, thin, the limbs slightly too long, its head tilted at an unnatural angle, like it was listening. No facial features, at least none I could make out in the stuttering light. Only the faint suggestion of a mouth stretched too wide, almost like static carved into a smile. My legs refused to cooperate. I was frozen behind the desk, heart trying to beat its way out of my chest. Then the hallway light blinked off, and when it came back on, the figure was gone. Gone from the hall, but not gone. The static began again, this time from the desk phone. The line buzzed, crackled, then began to ring. Not the usual chirp, but slow, drawn-out rings, like each one came from underwater. I reached out, hand trembling, and lifted the receiver. For a second, nothing but that familiar hiss. Then, you opened it. I dropped the phone. The handset clattered to the floor, still whispering. My vision swam. You looked. I staggered to my feet. I needed to leave. Screw the job. Screw the motel. But my feet didn't take me to the exit. They carried me toward room 6. Each step felt like it weighed 100 pounds, but I couldn't stop. The hallway was dark now, except for a faint glow leaking from under the door of room 6. Pale blue, like an old CRT television left on in a closet. The door was already open. Only an inch, but open. The static pulsed from within. The air hummed, vibrating in my chest like a bass note from an invisible speaker. I raised my phone to take a photo, anything to prove I wasn't going insane. As soon as the lens pointed into the room, my phone screen filled with snow. Then a face. Not mine. Not human. I dropped the phone. It hit the carpet, screen cracked, and died. Inside room 6, the light grew brighter, then dimmed, pulsing like a beacon. And then I heard footsteps behind me. Soft. Border. Dragging slightly. I didn't want to turn, but I did. The hallway behind me was empty. And yet, I still felt the breath on the back of my neck. I spun around, fists clenched, ready to swing at air. Nothing. Just empty space and that damned flickering light overhead. But the breath, it had been real. Moist cold, pressing against the nape of my neck like the exhale of something that had never lived. Room SIXS door creaked wider. The glow inside flickered wildly now. And through that pulsing light, I saw movement, shadows that didn't follow any body, didn't belong to anything visible. They slipped across the walls and ceiling like oil stains writhing in reverse. I took one step closer and the temperature dropped 10 degrees. The static was no longer just sound. It was in my bones. My teeth vibrated with it. The kind of hum you feel in your chest before a building collapses. I leaned forward, peering into the room. Inside was the same rotting mattress, but now it was sunken more deeply, as if something had curled up there for too long. And in the far corner, where the TV shelf used to be, the light shimmered like a heat mirage. Except cold. Wrong. It pulsed in and out, like a portal made of flickers and sound, tearing at the edges of reality. Then something stepped out. I don't know how else to describe it. It didn't walk. It phased, like static becoming solid. First the outline, a man-sized figure, jittering as if caught in dozens of overlapping frames. Each movement left after images, like it wasn't sure which version of itself to settle into. Its face was a smear, but in the middle of it were those eyes, pure black, with tendrils of static bleeding out across the skin. And it looked at me, not glanced, looked straight through the doorway, straight through the motel walls, and straight into me. Then, without moving its mouth, I heard it say, "You are open now." The thing stepped forward. My vision warped. I stumbled back into the hallway wall, hand searching for the emergency fire alarm. I pulled it. Nothing happened. No sound. No bell. just more static. That's when every door in the hallway creaked open at once. Not just room 6, every single door. 12 unoccupied rooms, 12 open mouths. And from inside each one, the static began to whisper my name. Nathan. It hissed from every direction, my name stretching and crackling through layers of static like it was being dragged across a wire. I backed away from room 6, chest tight, lungs barely filling. My name, over and over again, each whisper slightly different. Childlike in one, guttural in another, mechanical in the next. I turned and ran. The hallway seemed longer than it had been before, distorted. Every step felt like I was sinking into the floor, like the carpet had turned into wet concrete. The walls throbbed, lights flickering in a nauseating rhythm. And the doors, every open door, seemed to stretch wider as I passed, revealing only blackness within. I reached the lobby, slammed the door shut behind me, and locked it. The monitors were back on. All the feeds, every hallway, every room, showed the same image. Me, standing still in room 6. The live feed didn't make sense. I wasn't in the room. I was watching from the lobby, yet the figure on every screen was me, motionless, facing the wall. The same posture, the same uniform. But my reflection in the monitor didn't match. My eyes were wide with panic. His were empty, blank. Then, slowly, the me on the screen turned around and smiled, not with my mouth, with his eyes. They pulled wide, cracking at the edges, revealing that same black static leaking out. He lifted a hand and placed it gently against the lens. Every monitor blinked out at once. I couldn't breathe. I backed into the corner of the front office and grabbed the motel phone again. Dialed 911. Static. I tried my cell. No service. Then, from the front door came a knock. Just once. Calm. Measured. I didn't want to look, but I had to. It was me, or the version from the monitor. He stood outside the glass, head tilted in that broken, listening way. His face shifted subtly every second, features jumping like old film frames out of sync. One moment he was expressionless, the next weeping, then smiling again, too wide, too human. He pressed his face to the glass and whispered something I couldn't hear. Then he vanished. I locked the office, sat in the corner, waited for morning, but it never came. I don't know how long I've been here. The clock says 4:13 a.m., always 4:13. The sun hasn't risen. The monitors are blank except for room 6, always room 6. It plays on a loop now. Me walking in, me turning to the wall, me smiling. I haven't left the office. I can't. Every time I open the door, I'm back at the front desk. I tried smashing the screens. They reassemble when I blink. The phone rings sometimes. I don't answer anymore. It always says the same thing. He's inside now. I think that means me. My eyes ache. My skin buzzes. Sometimes I hear Marcy, but when I turn around, it's just static forming her shape. If anyone finds this, don't rewind the tapes. Don't listen to the static. And never open room 6. Because once you hear it, it hears you back, and it never forgets. Story 2. The Thing Beneath the Floorboards. Bayou/Insomnia Whistle. When I first moved into the cabin, I thought the creaking was normal. It's an old house, built in the 40s, tucked deep in the woods of northern Michigan. A fixer-upper, the listing said, perfect for someone wanting to disconnect. At the time, disconnecting sounded like paradise. No neighbors, no cell signal, no expectations. I didn't even notice the sounds the first few nights. The wind rattled the windows, the furnace moaned, the occasional pop from the cooling wood. Old houses always have voices, but this was different. It began with the floorboards. Around 3 a.m. every night, I'd wake up to a soft creaking. Not sharp enough to be footsteps, but steady, almost like breathing. Long groans from the planks beneath my bed. Then silence. I thought maybe it was mice or raccoons under the cabin. I made a mental note to check the crawl space. The next day, I brought a flashlight and unscrewed the warped panel behind the kitchen. Dust hit me in the face like powdered rot. The crawl space stretched just 4 feet tall, littered with old insulation and spiderwebs. I crawled in, expecting to find nests or chewed wires. Instead, I found something odd. a series of shallow impressions in the dirt. Like knees, a dragging pattern behind them. It led beneath the bedroom. I told myself it was just raccoons. Maybe something dragged itself through here looking for warmth. But the impressions were deep, wider than any animal I knew. That night, I left my phone recording beside the bed. At 2:57 a.m., the creaking began. At 3:02 a.m., the groaning intensified. At 3:06 a.m., a voice, barely audible, whispered, "Let me out." I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. I replayed that recording dozens of times. It was there, faint but clear. Something beneath me, begging. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe I left the TV on. Maybe it was a neighbor's voice echoing weirdly across the woods. But I wanted to believe that. Because if it wasn't, then something under my floorboards knew I was there and wanted out. I didn't record the next night. I couldn't. Just the thought of hearing that voice again made my stomach twist. Instead, I sat upright in bed with the lights on, flashlight in hand, phone fully charged. I told myself if I saw anything, I'd leave. No questions, no heroics. Just pack up and go. At 2:54 a.m., the creaking began again. This time I felt it. The floor beneath my bed subtly shifted, almost like something pushing upward. The frame of the mattress groaned under the movement. I froze, muscles tight, ears straining. The noise stopped. Then came a soft knock. From beneath the bed, 3 slow taps. I leapt up and backed against the wall, heart pounding, flashlight beam jittering as I pointed it at the floor. Nothing. No movement. No shadow. But I knew what I felt. It wasn't imagined. I didn't sleep that night. In the morning, I lifted the rug and pried, opened the narrow trapdoor that led into the crawl space again. Sunlight streamed through the kitchen, making the shadows underneath stretch like fingers. I climbed in. The dirt floor was disturbed. The impressions from before had changed. They were deeper. New lines scraped through the dirt. And at the far end, directly beneath where my bed sat, was something new. A handprint. Wide. Human-shaped. But the fingers were longer than they should be. Almost twice the length. There were too many knuckle joints. I scrambled back out and nailed the trapdoor shut. The rational part of me screamed to leave. But I couldn't. It didn't feel like I was deciding anymore. That night, I dragged my mattress into the living room. The creaking still came. Only now it moved. Whatever was under the floor had shifted to follow me. The groaning, the breathing. I could hear it beneath the boards by the fireplace. Slow, rhythmic, patient. Not scratching, not desperate. Waiting. At exactly 3:06 a.m., it spoke again. Closer. Just one word. But it knew where I was. It followed where I went. And it wanted me near. I didn't last another night. I packed a bag before the sun rose. Phone, wallet, flashlight, keys, and got into my truck, engine growling against the morning chill. The tires spun a little in the gravel before catching. I didn't care. I needed distance. But when I reached the end of the driveway, the world shifted. There was no road, just trees. Thick, endless forest where the gravel path should have been. I hit the brakes, blinked hard. I hadn't turned. I hadn't gotten lost. I backed up, heart thudding. The driveway was gone too. Behind me, more trees. I got out, breath fogging in the cold air, and walked in a circle around the truck. I was surrounded. The cabin was nowhere in sight. No birds, no wind, just silence. Then I heard it. Beneath the dead leaves at my feet, a muffled creak. With shifting, floorboards. Under the ground? I scrambled back into the truck, locked the doors, and waited. The silence held. No static, no whispers, not yet. Then the passenger seat groaned. I turned, slowly. Nothing was there, but the seat was indented, as if someone had just sat down. My breath caught in my throat. The glove box creaked open on its own. Inside was the cassette recorder from my bedroom, the one I'd left behind. It clicked to life and played back my voice. Only it wasn't a recording I ever made. The voice was mine, yes, but warped, slowed down, as if underwater. "Why did you leave me?" it said. I shoved the recorder out the window, slammed the truck into reverse, and gunned it. Branches tore at the sides, but the truck moved. Then, suddenly, I burst back into the clearing. The cabin stood exactly where I left it. Back on the porch, the trapdoor I nailed shut was wide open. Darkness yawned inside. I left again, On foot this time. Ran until my lungs gave out. But every path turned back to the cabin, and by the time the sun set, I was inside again, sitting on the couch. The floor beneath my feet creaked once, then twice, and a voice said, gently, "You're starting to listen." I'm not sure when I stopped resisting. Maybe it was the fifth night, when I woke up on the bedroom floor, even though I'd fallen asleep in the living room. Or the time I found my hand pressed flat against the floorboards, fingers spread like I was waiting for something beneath to press back. It didn't speak every night anymore. Sometimes it just listened. I could feel it. When I walked barefoot, it moved to follow. When I sat still, it waited. The boards would groan beneath me in slow, deliberate rhythm, as if it were breathing me in, and it wanted something, more than just my presence. One morning, I woke to find words carved into the wall above the kitchen sink. Let it in. They weren't there the night before. I checked the windows, still locked. The doors too. Nothing broken. No signs of forced entry. But the message was real. Fresh. Carved deep enough that pale would flake from the grooves like bone shavings. I stopped going into the crawl space after that. Not out of fear, but something worse. Temptation. There was a pull now. Like the floor itself had a heartbeat, and it was syncing with mine. That night, I slept directly on the floor. I didn't mean to, but I woke up there, cheek pressed to the boards, breath fogging the surface. And beneath the wood, I felt warmth. A hand slid against mine. Fingers, too many, too long, pressed through the cracks. Gentle, comforting. I didn't scream. I just whispered, "What do you want?" The floorboard creaked back, slow and deliberate, like a purr. That day, I nailed the trapdoor shut again. Then I bolted it. Then I moved the fridge over it. But the next morning, the fridge was gone. Just gone. Vanished. In its place, the trapdoor sat wide open. Dirt scattered across the kitchen floor in long, dragging trails. Whatever was beneath me didn't need permission anymore. It was already here. I stopped checking the time. There was no point. Whether it was day or night, the light outside didn't change. Always gray. Always still. My phone refused to charge now. Even the analog clock on the wall spun endlessly, never ticking, just spinning. I tried leaving again. Walked due north for what felt like hours. But no matter how far I went, I came back to the cabin. Once I screamed. Not out of fear, out of frustration. I hurled a rock into the trees and listened as it fell and landed on the roof above me seconds later. I was trapped in its orbit. It was learning me. It had started to mimic my habits. I'd hear footsteps when I didn't move. Drawers opening when I hadn't touched them. The shower running. Even my own voice humming, just out of sync, like an echo that didn't belong to me anymore. Then came the dreams. Always the same. I'm beneath the house, crawling through damp soil and broken beams. Something massive moves ahead, dragging itself away, but never far. Its body is long, flesh slick like worm skin, arms folded against its sides like broken wings. It whispers nonsense in 100 overlapping voices. But the worst part is when I catch a glimpse of its face. It's mine, or close enough. Eyes too wide, skin stretched too thin, a smile like a tear across a stitched mouth. And every time I wake, I'm closer to the trapdoor. Last night, I found myself standing over it, hand reaching for the edge, nails broken and dirty like I'd already been trying to open it. I snapped awake, yanked myself back, but it laughed. Not out loud, inside me, like something curling deeper into my bones. I don't know if it's trying to replace me, or if I already did. Today, I found a mirror cracked. Not broken, cracked, in a single jagged line from top left to bottom right, as if someone had traced a path through my reflection. I stood there for a long time, staring. Something about it disturbed me more than the voices, the footsteps, even the dreams. Because the version of me in the mirror didn't blink. I raised my hand, so did it. Tilted my head, same. But its eyes, they didn't match mine. Mine were hollow, bloodshot, afraid. His were gleaming, focused, hungry. That was when I realized I wasn't watching it through the glass. It was watching me through the crack. It moved slightly off sync, half a second behind, as if it were learning how to be me, just a little too slow. I covered the mirror with a towel, but I could still feel its gaze. That night, I heard footsteps in the attic. I didn't even know the cabin had an attic. The trapdoor in the hallway ceiling was small, barely large enough to squeeze through. I stood under it, flashlight aimed up, hands shaking. The footsteps had stopped. Then something tapped. 3 knocks. Same rhythm as the ones under the floor. I opened the attic door. Cold air spilled out, ice cold, like a breath that had waited too long. The flashlight beam caught something just beyond the hatch. A face, Mine, pressed to the boards. Only it was upside down, lips curved into a slow, wrong grin. Its eyes stared directly at me, while the body remained hidden in the shadows. Then, gently it whispered, "Now you're above." I slammed the hatch shut, but I heard it all night, moving above me, mirroring my steps. When I went to the kitchen, it creaked above. When I lay down, I heard it settle. We were no longer separated. It was beneath the floor, then it was above, and now, I think it's beside me. I don't remember unlocking the front door, but it was open this morning, swinging gently in the breeze. Leaves had blown inside, curled across the floor like dead fingers. And standing in the doorway, just outside the frame, was a figure. Back to me, unmoving. It wore my clothes, exactly what I'd worn yesterday. I should have been terrified. Instead, I just watched, waiting. Its shoulders slowly rose and felt like it was breathing in time with me. Then it turned its head, not all the way, just enough to show part of its face. And I knew, it was me, but wrong. Its skin didn't sit right, too tight in some places, sagging in others. The eyes were dull, like buttons stitched into a wet cloth. Its smile was stitched wide, so wide it bled into its cheeks. It raised its hand and pointed not at me, at the trapdoor. I slammed the front door shut, locked it, nailed it. I checked every mirror. Each one showed me as I was. Pale, sunken, cracked lips, wild hair. But in one, the bathroom mirror, I blinked late. Too late. My reflection moved after I did, and smiled. It wasn't just copying me anymore. It was practicing. That night, I heard something walking on the roof. Heavy, deliberate. It paced until 3:06 a.m., then jumped to the ground. I waited for it to knock, but it didn't. Instead, I heard it whisper through the heating vents. Trade. The air turned thick. Sulfur, copper, and something worse, like old blood left in the sun. I tried to scream, but my voice caught. Then came scratching. Not from outside, from inside the walls. It's circling me now, like it's looking for a way out of whatever skin it's wearing. Or a way in. I'm not sure which one of us it's coming for anymore. Tonight, I saw it in the mirror, fully formed. It smiled and waved. I didn't. I tried to break the glass, but there was no impact. No sound. Just ripples like water. And my reflection stepped through. I don't remember what happened next. Now I'm sitting by the trapdoor, nails in my hand, unsure whether to seal it shut or pull it wide open. The house is silent. The thing in the floor doesn't need to speak anymore. Because I hear inside my own thoughts now, whispering with my voice. It tells me I was always beneath. And it was always me. If you find this cabin, do not enter. Do not follow the creaks. And for God's sake, don't look in the mirror. Because once it sees you, it never looks away. Story 3. I found a door in my basement that wasn't there yesterday. Bayou/Bleach Drift. I've lived in this house for nearly 5 years. It's nothing fancy. A ranch-style place in Indiana with a half-finished basement I use mostly for storage. Old bikes, paint cans, boxes of holiday stuff I never unpack. The kind of space you forget exists until you need it. Last Thursday, I went down there to find my toolkit. The overhead bulb buzzed to life, and everything looked the same at first. Then I saw the door, tucked into the far left corner of the basement, where the concrete met the foundation wall, partially hidden behind a stack of dusty moving boxes. A door I swear wasn't there before. It was metal, dull, featureless, and flush with the wall like it had always been part of the structure. No handel, no hindis, just a rectangle of darker steel and a faint outline around the edges, like it hadn't been opened in a very, very long time. I thought maybe I'd forgotten it, or missed it somehow. Maybe the previous owners had sealed off an old storm shelter or something. But something about it felt wrong, off balance. The air near it was cooler. Still, like the basement had its own weather system now. I knocked. No hecho. Instead, The metal seemed to absorb the sound, swallowing it. I left the basement without the tools. That night, I had a dream. I stood before the door again, but this time it was open. Not wide, just enough to see darkness beyond. The kind of darkness that looks like it leans toward you when you stare too long. In a dream, I heard whispering. Not words, just intonations, syllables that scraped like metal on stone. I didn't understand them, but they made me feel cold inside. When I woke, I was sitting up in bed. My feet were dirty, dusty, as if I'd been walking barefoot on concrete. I tried to forget about it. Told myself I must have been sleepwalking. I'd seen an old part of the basement for the first time and overreacted. Maybe the dream had just been my brain processing that weird discovery. Happens all the time, right? But the next day, I noticed something new. The door had changed. There was now a handle. Thin, rusted, curved downward like a claw. I stood at the foot of the basement stairs, staring at it from across the room. The air around it buzzed. Not audibly, not quite, but I could feel in my teeth like the hum of power lines. I didn't approach it. Not yet. Instead, I called a contractor friend of mine, Mike. I told him I'd found a sealed-off door in my basement, and I wanted help opening it. He said he'd come by the next morning. That night, I dreamed again. This time, I was inside the door. The walls were too narrow, too close, stones slick with moisture. My shoulders brushed both sides. I walked barefoot on damp earth. It wasn't a room. It was a tunnel. And ahead of me, I could see a shape moving, lumbering slowly, dragging something heavy behind it. I couldn't see its face, only the long arc of its back. Its skin was pale, nearly gray, stretched thin over bones that didn't look quite human. It stopped and turned around. I woke up screaming. Mike came around noon. When I led him downstairs, I felt oddly nervous, like something might have changed again. It had. The handle was gone. The door was flush again, metal cold and smooth as if nothing had ever been attached to it. Mike gave me a look like I'd wasted his time. You sure you didn't dream this up, man? I saw it. It was there. He humored me, knocked a few times, even tapped it with a hammer. Said it sounded like solid steel, but there was no draft, no echo, no space behind it at all. But that wasn't true. As Mike left the basement, I stayed behind. And I heard a whisper. It came from the other side of the door. It said my name. I didn't go back down that day. I sat upstairs on the couch, lights on, TV blaring, trying to drown out the silence pressing in from below. Every creak in the floor made me jump. I kept glancing at the basement door in the hallway, half expecting it to swing open on its own. That night, I dreamed of the door again. Only this time, I wasn't standing in front of it. I was on the other side. Inside, it was cold and wet, the walls pulsing with dampness. No light, but I could see. I don't know how to explain it. Everything was in shades of black. Like my eyes had adapted to a new kind of darkness. I wasn't alone. There were others. Shapes like people, but thinner. Boneless. Their limbs bent wrong, and their heads lolled like broken dolls. They whispered in that same metallic rasp. Not words, frequencies. Static noise translated into intent. And every sound seemed aimed at me. They were waiting. When I woke, I had dirt under my fingernails. Black. Damp. Smelling faintly of iron. The next day, I stayed away from the house. Worked from coffee shop. Went to a movie. Ate dinner in my car. Anything to delay going back. But night eventually forced me home. I told myself I'd go to bed without looking. But as I brushed my teeth, I heard it. The basement door creaking open. I froze. Turned slowly. The hallway was dark. I stepped into it, barefoot, toothbrush still in hand. The basement door was open. Just a crack. And from below, that same soft whisper. Come see. My legs moved before I could stop them. Down the stairs. One at a time. Into the cold. The basement was pitch black, but I didn't need to see. I knew where the door was. It was open. No longer a metal slab, but an actual entrance. Inside was utter blackness, but it breathed. Not air. Not wind. A pull. Like it was inhaling me. I stepped back. Closed the basement door. Locked it. Put a chair under the knob. It whispered until morning. The next morning, I found a chair tipped over. The basement door stood wide open. I didn't hear it open. Didn't wake up. But there it was, yawning into the darkness like a waiting mouth. The air was colder now. Noticeably so. My breath fogged, even in the hallway. I didn't go down. Not first. I called Mike again. Asked him to come back to bring tools. I told him something was behind that wall. Maybe a sealed-off crawl space. Maybe worse. I left out the dreams. The whispers. The breathing. He arrived around noon, this time with a crowbar and a kind of wary curiosity in his eyes. We descended the stairs together. The door was closed again. He knocked solid. Then he pressed his ear to it. "There's space behind it," he muttered. "Might be a sealed room after all." Then he paused. "Wait, do you hear that?" I didn't say a word. We both stood in silence. From the other side, a faint scraping, like fingernails dragging across stone. Not aggressive, not frantic, just steady. Mike took a step back. "You sure this isn't like a septic tunnel or something?" I shook my head. He tapped the crowbar against the edge of the doorframe. Metal strange. No bolts. No welds. No frame, even. It's like this thing's part of the wall. He tried prying, but the tool wouldn't catch. The edge of the door was flush. Perfectly so. "I've never seen anything like this," he admitted. "It's like it doesn't want to open." I wanted to ask, "Then why does it keep opening on its own?" Mike left after an hour, shaken. Said he'd come back with better equipment. But I knew he wouldn't. That night, I woke at 3:33 a.m., standing at the top of the basement stairs. I don't remember getting out of bed. I was holding a candle. I never use candles. Below, in the dark, the whisper came again. This time clearer. Closer. "You're almost ready." I'm not sleeping much anymore. I tried boarding the basement door shut. Hammered thick planks across the frame, sealed it from top to bottom. But every morning, the boards are gone, neatly stacked beside the door, nails still straight, as if someone had gently removed them with care. The door never opens in front of me now. Only when I look away. Only when I sleep. I don't remember dreaming anymore, but I wake with dirt on my hands. Once, I found a deep gouge on my arm, like a claw mark for inches long. It didn't bleed, just burned. Worse, I'm starting to hear it during the day. At first, it was faint, a whisper behind the hum of the fridge, behind the trees rustling outside. Now it's bolder. I'll hear my name when the faucet runs, or from the static of my phone when I scroll. Today, I found something inside the house. Not a thing. A message, carved into the wooden floor just outside the basement stairs. "You belong here." The scratches weren't shallow. They were deep, gouged clean through the finish like dug in with fingernails or teeth. I scrubbed it, sanded it. An hour later, it was back. Only now, the message said, "You've always belonged here." I tried leaving. Packed a bag, grabbed my keys. The car wouldn't start. The engine turned, but wouldn't catch. Battery's fine. Gas tank full. Just silence. While I got out and slammed the door, the car radio turned on by itself. It played something that wasn't music. A garbled voice. Mine. Repeating one phrase. "Let me in." I ran back inside. Locked everything. Curtains drawn. The house breathed around me. The lights flickered and held. The walls groaned. And in the distance, beneath the house, I heard something moving. Getting closer. Dragging itself. Crawling. I nailed my bedroom door shut. It sounded insane, I know, but I needed some kind of barrier. Some place in the house that still felt like mine. I pushed a dresser in front of it, shoved my mattress against the window, and left every light on. I haven't left this room in 2 days. The door in the basement opened again last night. I didn't go see it. I didn't need to. I heard the sound of it scraping open. Slow, deliberate, like something dragging its fingers across the inside as it pushed. Then footsteps. Not quick ones. Deliberate. They came up the stairs. Stopped just outside my bedroom. Then I heard it breathing. Long inhales, wet and shuddering like lungs full of water. And then the voice, closer than it had ever been. "You've seen it." I pressed myself against the far wall, clutching a lamp like a weapon. "You've walked its halls." The thing didn't try to force the door. It didn't need to. It was just waiting. After hours, the breathing stopped. But it left something behind. A single knock on the wood. Not urgent. Not angry. Just patient. This morning, I found a sliver of metal wedged under my door. Part of the handle from the basement. It was rusted, but warm to the touch. Too warm. I threw it out the window, but when I turned around, it was back on my nightstand. I don't think the door wants me dead. It wants me there. It wants me inside. and I'm starting to forget why I shouldn't listen. Sometimes I find myself at the foot of the stairs, nails in my hand, whispering, calling to it, calling to myself. Tonight, the door spoke clearly. No whispers, no abrir insinuations, just words, my voice, spoken from beneath the floorboards. I'm ready now. It came from all directions, through the vents, the pipes, the grain of the wooden beams. My own throat felt tight, like I'd already said the words myself, and they were simply echoing back. I think I did. I've started losing time. This evening, I blinked, and suddenly I was standing at the top of the basement stairs, barefoot, dirt under my nails, the door below me wide open. That wet, earthen tunnel was visible now. The light inside had changed. It wasn't black anymore, it was red, pulsing alive, and I wanted to go in. Every cell in my body screamed for it. Not fear, hunger. The pull wasn't just spiritual now. It was physical. The space between me and that door felt like it was shrinking even as I stood still. Something was in the tunnel, crouched, waiting, a shape that looked like me but swollen, unfinished. Its limbs twitched at odd angles, like it hadn't figured out how to use them yet. Its skin glistened, stretched thin across a skeletal frame. And as I stared, it began to smile. Not a gesture, a message. I'm almost you. I slammed the door shut, nailed it again, pushed the washer and dryer in front of it, stacked boxes, furniture, anything I could find. But now, upstairs, the walls have started to bleed. Not actual blood, memory. They're showing things I've never lived. Dreams that aren't mine. People I don't know. Smiling in rooms I've never been in. Reflections that move out of sync. I looked into the bathroom mirror tonight. I didn't blink, but my reflection did, and its mouth moved. It said, tomorrow. I woke up on the basement floor. The door is open. I don't remember coming down here, but my hands are filthy. My mouth tastes like earth. The tunnel breathes now, a heartbeat in the walls. The red glow pulses in time with my own. I can hear it moving me, the thing I left behind. I think it finally stepped through. I think it's upstairs. I don't know what it wants. To live? To become me? Or maybe I was always meant to take its place. I'm cold. I can hear it above me, walking, talking to someone, answering the phone in my voice, laughing. It fits better than I ever did. If you find this door, don't open it. Don't knock. And for the love of God, don't listen when it speaks your name. Story 4. The Whistle in the Pinewood Hollow. Bayou/sleeps with branches. There's a hollow near my grandfather's cabin that we were never supposed to go near. He called it Pinewood Hollow, a shallow dip in the earth where the pines grow too close together and the wind never really moves. Even in summer, it's cold there. Still, like the place holds its breath. We spent every summer up at the cabin growing up. Me, my cousin Trevor, and Grandpa. We'd hike, fish, roast marshmallows. But there was one rule Grandpa never been on. Don't follow the whistle. It sounded silly when we were younger. A whistle? Like a bird? A hunter? Sometimes we'd hear it at night. 2 sharp notes, always the same rhythm, floating in from the woods around 2 or 3 a.m. Once, Trevor whistled back. Grandpa slapped the sound out of his mouth before the second note left his lips. You don't answer it, he said, voice shaking. Ever. We didn't ask questions. Not after we saw the look in his eyes. But last week, I came back to the cabin alone. Grandpa passed away 3 months ago, and I inherited the place. It felt wrong to let it sit empty. I figured a weekend in the woods might help clear my head. Honor his memory, even. First 2 days were quiet. Peaceful. I fished in the same spots we used to walk the trails, made dinner on the old iron stove. But the third night, I heard it again. 2 sharp notes. Long pause. Then again. Whistle. Pause. Whistle. It came from deep in the woods, toward Pinewood Hollow. I didn't respond, but something inside me twitched, like a tug behind my ribs. At midnight, I woke to my front door open. No wind. No signs of animals. Just open. And lying on the floorboards was a pine cone. Fresh. Damp. I didn't pick it up. I just stared at it. And then the whistle came again. Closer. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. Every few minutes, the whistle returned. Same 2 notes, same slow rhythm. Sometimes closer, sometimes farther. Like it was circling. Like it was waiting. I kept every light on. sat in the corner with Grandpa's old hunting knife, and listened. The pine cone was still on the floor when morning came, but it had split open overnight. Inside, the seeds were gone. Something else had replaced them. Small pebbles, each scratched with symbols I didn't recognize. Crude carvings, like a child had etched them with a nail. I tossed it in the fireplace and lit a match. The flames hissed, green for a second, then went out. That's when I found Grandpa's journal. It was buried in the back of his old toolbox, beneath a false bottom. A small leather-bound notebook, brittle with age. The first few pages were about the cabin, repairs, weather logs, old hunting notes. But midway through, things changed. He wrote about the hollow. He called it the place that doesn't belong. Said the trees grew in a perfect spiral, unnatural in a forest like this. Said animals avoided it. Birds flew around it. Even insects didn't buzz near the pines. He wrote of a whistling man, though he never named it directly. Just hints, descriptions. Tall, skin like birch bark, mouth too wide, nosleep, whistles with no breath. Comes after the weak ones, the grieving. It lights when you're hollow too. He wrote that the whistle used to come only once a year on the longest night. But lately, it had started visiting more, calling more. He never said what it wanted, only that if you followed it, you didn't come back the same. I set the journal down. Outside, the wind finally blew through the trees for the first time since I arrived. But the leaves didn't rustle. They whispered, and all I could hear was my name. I left the cabin around noon, flashlight in my jacket pocket and Grandpa's journal tucked under my arm. I didn't plan on going far, just enough to prove to myself that Pinewood Hollow was just another part of the woods. Nothing strange, nothing cursed, but the trees felt tighter than I remembered. The path twisted where it shouldn't. Roots jutted from the ground like knuckles. Birds were silent. Even the air had changed, thicker, like trying to breathe through cotton. Still, I kept going. When I reached the hollow, I stopped dead. Grandpa wasn't exaggerating. The pines formed a perfect spiral, evenly spaced. No underbruce, no fallen limbs. The earth between them looked swept, smooth, flat, unnatural. I took one step inside. The temperature dropped, and I heard a crack behind me. I spun around. Nothing, but I wasn't alone. The first thing I noticed was the shadow, long and thin, stretched along the spiral, cast by nothing I could see. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Then came the whistle. 2 notes. Soft. Right behind me. I turned slowly and saw it. Tall. Towering maybe 7 feet. A body like stripped bark and limbs too long. Joints bending wrong. Its head tilted. No eyes. Just slits where they should have been. Its mouth hung open in a perpetual oval. And from that, gaping maw. It whistled again. No breath. No lungs. Just sound. It didn't step forward. It glided. The pines seemed to lean in around it, forming a tighter spiral as it moved. My flashlight flickered, though I hadn't turned it on. Then, without thought, I whistled back. I didn't want to. I didn't even feel my lips move. But the notes echoed into the hollow anyway. The thing stopped and smiled. It had no lips, but it smiled. The moment I whistled back, the forest changed. The light dimmed, not like sunset, but like the sun itself had blinked. The air thickened, humid and metallic. The trees shifted subtly, as if the spiral tightened around me. I stumbled backward, breath catching in my throat, but the thing didn't move. It waited. Its head tilted farther, too far, vertebrae creaking, and its grin widened. From its mouth came a new sound. Not a whistle, but something like a sigh dragged across splintered glass. A sound that made the roots under my feet twitch. I turned and ran. Branches whipped my face, the spiral somehow never-ending. I passed the same bent pine again and again, like I was running in a loop that wouldn't let me leave. My lungs screamed. My legs burned. Then the whistling returned. This time, multiple. Dozens. Maybe hundreds. Some deep, others shrill. All around me. Above. Beneath. Inside the trees themselves. I tripped and crashed into the dirt. That's when I saw the faces. Pressed into the bark. Human. Twisted. Eyes wide in horror or ecstasy. I couldn't tell. Their mouth stretched open, each one frozen mid-whistle. Some looked old, crumbling at the edges. Others looked fresh. Too fresh. I scrambled up and screamed. The forest didn't echo. It swallowed the sound. Somehow I made it out. I don't remember how. 1 second I was in the spiral, and the next I collapsed just outside the tree line, gasping like I'd been underwater. Behind me, the hollow stood still. The thing hadn't followed. But as I caught my breath, I realized something was still in my hand. One of the pine cone stones from earlier, except this one had a face carved into it. Mine. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch, Grandpa's shotgun across my lap, the carved stone on the table in front of me. Every time I looked away, I swore its features changed. The expression shifted from neutral to something like glee. I even tried smashing it with the fireplace poker, but when I struck it, the metal sparked off and the stone didn't crack. It laughed, not audibly, but in my head, a soft, dry chuckle like wind through dead leaves. The whistles didn't come that night, but I still heard something walking the perimeter of the cabin. Heavy steps. Slow. It circled until dawn. By morning, everything felt off. The birdsong was too slow. The clock hands had stopped, frozen at 2:33 a.m., the same time I'd heard the first whistle. My phone refused to turn on. The mirror in the bathroom reflected the room just fine, but not me. Not quite me. My reflection blinked late. It smiled when I didn't. I covered it with a towel. Desperate, I grabbed Grandpa's journal again. Toward the back, I found an entry dated nearly 30 years ago. Trevor followed the whistle. I told him not to. He's gone now, but not gone. The hollow has him. My cousin, Trevor. Grandpa told everyone he'd run away at 15. Vanished one summer night and was never seen again. But he didn't run. He followed it. Another page, stained with water damage, mentioned something about a final whistle, a third and final note that seals the listener's fate. First note calls, second beckons, third binds. It said if you answered all three, the hollow took you. Not your body, yourself, your face, your voice, your memories. It grew things in your place, things made of bark and sorrow and hunger. That's why Grandpa hit Trevor, to stop the third note, to stop him from becoming something else. Something that would smile without lips. I packed to leave. No hesitation this time. I threw what I could in my backpack, grabbed the shotgun, and shoved the stone into a mason jar sealed with duct tape. I figured I'd hike down the service road to the ranger station, get help, call someone, anyone. Just be away. But as soon as I stepped off the porch, I knew I was too late. The forest wasn't right. The trees had moved. I don't know how I knew, but I did. The trail was gone, replaced by more of those sickly, symmetrical pines. I tried to retrace my steps, but the earth felt different, springier, as if it breathed beneath me. The air carried no scent. No birds, no bugs, nothing. And then it whistled. Just once. One long note. Soft, sweet, almost sad. I didn't answer. I didn't move. Then came the second. Shorter, sharper, just like before. My breath caught. I clamped my hands over my mouth, heart pounding. I wasn't going to respond. Not again. But something inside me did. From somewhere deep in my throat, without my lips moving, 2 notes escaped. Perfect mimicry. My body answered, even as my mind screamed. A silence followed, heavier than sound. Then, deep in the woods, the third note, lower, final, a tone that settled into my bones like roots twisting into marrow. I fell to my knees, the weight of it forcing me down. My skin felt too tight. My teeth ached. My vision blurred around the edges, trees stretching and curling toward the sky like fingers. From between them, I saw a figure step out. It wore my cousin Trevor's face. Or almost. His eyes were too large. His mouth too wide. Bark had grown along his arms, spiraling like tattoos. When he smiled, I saw sap dripping from between his teeth. He raised his hand and beckoned. "I've been waiting," he said, and I realized I was smiling too. I ran, or tried to, but my legs didn't feel like mine anymore. The ground moved strangely beneath me, pulsing like a heartbeat. Trees leaned in, closing the path behind. Every step I took echoed inside me, as if the forest had become part of me, or I had become part of it. And still, the whistles followed. 3 notes, again and again, weaving through the air like a song stuck on loop. But it wasn't just a sound anymore. It was a command. Every time it played, My body jerked, my eyes blurred, and something behind them twisted. I stumbled into a clearing. I knew it instantly. Pinewood Hollow. The spiral had grown wider. The pines taller, their branches arched overhead like a cage. In the center stood the figure wearing Trevor's face. Only now, there were others. Dozens. All with bark skin. All with wrong smiles. All wearing faces I knew. Family. Friends. People from photos on Grandpa's wall. Each stood motionless, heads tilted, and whistling. The same 3 notes, but staggered. Offbeat. Like a round played in a nightmare. My head throbbed. I dropped to my knees. Blood trickled from my ears. "You came," the Trevor thing said. "It always calls us home eventually." I screamed. The sound came out like a whistle. They cheered. They stepped toward me, reaching out with fingers like roots. Not to harm, but to welcome, to claim. The Trevor thing leaned close, forehead nearly touching mine. "You're hollow now." It pressed a hand to my chest, and I felt it. My memories, my thoughts, my voice, peeling away like bark from wet wood. I saw the cabin. Grandpa. Laughter. All drifted into mist. And in their place, silence. Peace. Roots. I live here now. Among the pines. Among the hollow ones. My feet have rooted. My skin is rough. My smile is wide. The others hum the song beneath the soil, and I whistle the call when the moon is right. A cabin sits just beyond the tree line. Another soul sleeps there, hollowing out slowly. I'll call to them soon, and they'll come, as I did, because grief is a doorway, and the hollow is always listening. So when you hear the whistle, 2 notes in the dark, don't answer, unless you're ready to become the woods. Story 5. There's something living in my storm drain. By you/Gutterglass Eyes. I live at the edge of a small town. One of those quiet places where everyone knows each other's dog's name, and the streetlights flicker like they're powered by memory instead of electricity. It's peaceful, safe, or it was, until I started hearing the knocking. It came from the storm drain at the bottom of my driveway. Every night, around 2:17 a.m., exactly, the sound would begin. 3 soft knocks, then silence. At first, I ignored it. Figured it was a raccoon or possum stuck down there. The drain's deep, maybe 8 or 9 feet, and connect to the rest of the town's storm tunnels. I thought about checking it, but something about those knocks felt intentional. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 more. Always the same rhythm. The 4th night, curiosity got the better of me. I went out with a flashlight and stood over the grate, angling the beam down into the dark. Nothing. Just moss, water, and shadow. I even called out hello. Silence. No espace. No movement. But the moment I turned to go back inside, knock, 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 right behind me. I spun around. The grate was still sealed. No one around. Just a lingering dampness in the air and that faint metallic smell like rust and wet pennies. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I asked my neighbor, Old Man Richie, if he'd ever heard anything weird from the storm drains. He went pale, told me in a whisper, don't talk to it, don't feed it, don't acknowledge it. Then he shuffled inside without another word. I thought he was messing with me, until the next night, when the drain spoke. It didn't speak like you or I speak. It started as a gurgle, like water backing up, then a wet cough, then words, twisted and warped like they'd been gargled through gravel. Too quiet up there. I froze. I hadn't even approached the drain yet, just opened the front door to check if the knocking would happen again. But the voice came, slithering out with the night air, curling around my ankles like fog. Come closer. I didn't move, didn't breathe. The flashlight in my hand flickered. You heard me yesterday, it rasped. You looked. The grate stayed shut. No fingers, no face. Just that terrible voice oozing out of the concrete. Then the knocking resumed. Slower this time. Knock, knock, knock. I ran inside, locked every door, pushed furniture against windows. I didn't sleep, just sat on the couch with the lights off and my phone in my hand, finger hovering over 911. But what was I going to say? That my storm drain was talking to me? Morning brought no peace. I went back out. The grate looked normal, untouched. But next to it, laid carefully on the sidewalk, was a gift. A tooth, long yellowed, curved slightly, like it belonged in something that once chewed sideways. Wrapped around, it was a strip of cloth, soaked through. I thought it was red from rust, but it was still wet. That afternoon, I walked into town to ask Richie more, but his house was dark, shutters drawn, no answer at the door. Another neighbor said he hadn't come outside all day, and that old coot barely sleeps. I left him a note, just 3 words. It talked back. When I got home, the tooth was gone. In its place, scratched into the sidewalk, were 3 words etched in concrete. You talked first. That night, I didn't wait for the knocks. I watched from my upstairs window, lights off, eyes trained on the drain like it might crawl up, and walk toward the house. Nothing moved for a long time. Then, at 2:17 a.m. sharp, the knocking started again. But this time, it wasn't alone. There was breathing, heavy and wet, like lungs that hadn't worked in years suddenly trying again. It rose between each knock, and after the 3rd set, the voice returned. Said you were lonely. I didn't respond. It kept talking, the voice louder now, echoing through the stillness of the street like it belonged there. We all float down here, it crooned. The wet world beneath. I didn't blink, didn't move, but something else did. In the corner of my eye, I saw a shape dart from behind a car across the street and slink into the drain. Fast, thin, too long. I ran to the kitchen, grabbed a kitchen knife, and stayed up till sunrise again. When I checked the drain the next morning, the grate was wet, dripping, though it hadn't rained in over a week. The concrete around it had softened, too, as if something had been scratching at it from below. I called the town's maintenance department, asking if someone could check the drain. Told them it might be clogged or cracked. They never showed. That afternoon, I visited the local library to search the archives. I found an article from 1974. Boy vanishes near storm drains. No trace found. The photo showed a spot that looked nearly identical to mine. Same slope, same mossy sidewalk. The boy's name was Ellis Weaver. Age 10. Last seen playing with a red rubber ball. The article said neighbors reported strange noises from the sewer in the weeks before. And beneath the photo, someone had circled the image of the drain and scrawled in pencil. It talks to children first. I didn't hear the knocking that night. That should have been a relief, but silence can be worse than noise. At least the knocks had rhythm, a pattern I could anticipate. The absence made everything feel like a breath held too long. I stayed by the window again. Nothing moved, but when I went out in the morning, I saw footprints. Bare, small, leading from the storm drain to my front porch and back again. And beside them, the red rubber ball from the article. I didn't touch it, just stared. The ball pulsed. Not literally, maybe, but my eyes told me it did. Like a heartbeat under rubber. I backed away slowly, locked the door, and called every number I could find for the town's utilities department. No one answered. Mailboxes full. I drove to Richie's. His windows were boarded up now. I banged on the door. No answer. Just as I turned to leave, I noticed something stuck to the side of his mailbox. A Polaroid. A close-up of a face. Richie's, I think. But his mouth was stretched impossibly wide, corners cracked and bleeding. His eyes were entirely black. His skin glistened like wet stone. On the back, scrawled in shaky handwriting. It's hungry now. I went back home, threw salt at the drain, poured bleach into the cracks. Anything I could think of. The air hissed when the bleach hit the grating. Steam rose. That night, I dreamt I was underground. The tunnels went forever. Walls pulsed like flesh. My feet were soaked. I could hear whispers, too many to make out, echoing in the wet dark. But one voice cut through the others. You opened the door. I turned. Something was crawling toward me. Long limbs. No face. The rubber ball tucked under one arm. It laughed. No sound, just vibration in the bones of the tunnel. Then it lunged. I woke up choking on water. My sheets were soaked, and my ears were full of dirt. I checked my ears in the mirror. Packed with sludge, black and grainy like wet soil. I had to flush them out for 10 minutes before the ringing stopped. My pillow was soaked through with the same brackish water. The smell stuck to my skin like mold. I tried to leave town. Didn't pack much. Just keys, wallet, and a backpack. I made it halfway down the county road before I realized the pavement had looped. I was back in my own driveway. 3 times I tried. 3 different turns. Same result. Each time, the red rubber ball was a few feet closer to my front step. I brought it inside. I shouldn't have. I thought maybe, just maybe, I could reason with it. Negotiate. Offer the thing something, anything to undo whatever I'd started. That night, it didn't knock. It sang. Not with words. Just a low, thrumming vibration rising up through the floorboards. I could feel in my spine. It pulled me toward the drain like a magnet under skin. I pressed my hands against the living room wall and whispered, "Please stop." The humming paused. Then came a new sound, scraping. Metal on concrete, like the grate being slowly pulled aside. I ran outside. The street was empty. The grate was gone. Not removed, gone. In its place, a perfect circle of blackness. Too black, like it swallowed light. No reflection, no depth, and something was rising from it. Pale fingers, thin, ridged with tiny black barnacles, gripping the edge. Then a face. No eyes, just slick, featureless skin stretched over a round head. The mouth was vertical, like a seam, slowly peeling open. Inside, rows of flat teeth. Too many. It didn't crawl out. It waited. For me. Behind me, the front door slammed shut. The red rubber ball rolled down the steps. And a voice whispered from the hole. Time to come home. I couldn't move. The thing in the drain didn't blink. It had no eyes, but I felt it watching me. Every nerve in my body screamed to run, but my feet were glued to the pavement. I stood like prey, frozen before a predator whose form defied nature. Its long fingers twitched. It didn't climb out, not all at once. It unfolded, one limb at a time, bending in ways joints aren't supposed to, peeling itself up and out of the circle like it was slipping from cocoon. Its skin glistened under the streetlight, pale and wet, glimmering with something oily and dark. Then came the others. I didn't see them at first, just movement in my periphery, shapes slithering from the other drains along the street. Manhole covers rattling, sewer grates lifting like eager mouths, figures spilling from them, thin and tall, walking like they'd forgotten how. Some still held their faces, human or close enough, warped, melted, as if they were memories of people wearing what they remembered of skin. One looked like a girl from my middle school. Another had my mailman's eyes. A third, God help me, wore a face I hadn't seen since I was 6. My mother's, but wrong. Too wide, too pale, her mouth stitched into a sideways grin. And then they began to circle, not fast, deliberate, feet sloshing in silent rhythm. All of them whistling low, not with mouths, but from inside. The hum returned, vibrating through the pavement. The one that climbed from my drain stepped forward, teeth clicking together like insect legs. "You heard me," it said. "You welcomed me." I shook my head. "No, I never." "You answered," it hissed. It raised a finger, pointing past me. I turned. My front door was wide open. Inside, my house was different. Too long. Shadows didn't match the walls. The furniture looked like mine, but shifted. The hallway stretched into dark. I could see a staircase that didn't exist before. Narrow and crooked, descending straight into the floor. And from the bottom came the knocking. 3 times. Slow. Heavy. "Your place is below now," it whispered. The ball rolled past my feet and stopped at the threshold. The creature reached out. Not with violence, but invitation, like it was giving me a choice. The others waited, all their heads tilted. The wind had stopped. Even the bugs were gone. It felt like time was holding its breath. I stepped back. The thing's head twitched. Another knock from inside. A second, then a third. But this time, it came from inside me. I could feel it like something tapping on the inside of my rib cage, asking to be let out. I screamed. The creatures flinched, but only slightly. And then I ran. Not into the house. Into the woods. Behind the house was a strip of trees, thick and wild. I sprinted barefoot, branches slicing in my skin, lungs burning. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. They were following. Not with footfalls, but sounds. Knocks. Scrapes. Whispers. And beneath it all, a deep, wet laugh that came from everywhere at once. I ran until I collapsed, knees in the mud, vision swimming. Then silence. For a moment, I thought I'd escaped, until I saw the storm drain, sitting in the middle of the woods. Alone, waiting. It shouldn't have been there. The forest around me was wild and dense, miles from town. No pavement, no plumbing, no reason for a storm drain to exist. But there it was, rusted, round, sunken into a perfect ring of dead leaves, as if the ground had been holding it like an offering. I should have run the other way, but something inside me, something curled and coiled, pulled me closer. The drain pulsed faintly, the metal breathing like a lung just beneath the soil. The grating was gone again, open like a yawning mouth. But instead of water or darkness, I saw stairs. Not man-made, not stone, just tightly packed earth spiraling downward, walls slick with moisture and roots that twitched at my approach. I stepped closer. From deep below, I heard the whisper of water, and then a new sound. Crying. Soft. Childlike. A boy. Help! It whimpered. Please. I am stuck. Ellis Weaver. His name slammed into my brain like a hammer. The kid from the 1974 article. Gone for decades, yet the voice sounded young, desperate, recent. My heart pounded. I took another step forward, peering down into the drain. The air that rushed out was warm and wet, smelling of mildew and something older. Don't leave me, the boy sobbed. Then another voice, different, older. Familiar. Richie. I tried, he murmured. But the tunnels remember. The things below, they feed on what you forget. I staggered back, but the drain vibrated beneath me, the spiral stairs shifting like the throat of a snake. A hand gripped the edge. It wasn't a child's. Gray. Thin. Vet. The same barnacled skin I'd seen before. But now I realized those weren't barnacles. They were eyes. Tiny, black, blinking in different rhythms, watching me from every angle. More hands followed. Too many fingers. Some fused together. Some ending in nails that curled like fishing hooks. The creature pulled itself halfway out. Its face changed as it emerged, cycling through people I knew. My old teacher. My grandfather. My reflection. Then it settled on someone I didn't know at all. A blank, smooth surface. No features. Just a mouth, a jagged slit that smiled sideways. We live in the cracks, it said. In the spaces you ignore. Every drain is a doorway. Every puddle a peephole. I turned and ran again. Deeper into the woods. But the trees were wrong now. Closer. Thicker. Like they'd grown inward around me. I came to a clearing with no sky. Above me, the trees had woven into a ceiling. Vines like veins. Hanging things that looked like wind chimes but were teeth strung on twine. And in the center of it all, another drain. Open. Waiting. It didn't matter where I ran. The drains were following me, or I was being funneled back. The whispers started again. Dozens of voices. Some chanting, others begging. Then my voice, echoing from below, saying one thing. Let me out. And the worst part? It sounded like it wasn't asking me. It was warning me. I'm not home anymore. I'm somewhere beneath. Somewhere wet and endless, where the walls breathe and the dark has teeth. The drain took me. Or maybe I was always part of it. I hear my voice above now. It knocks from inside your walls. It hums beneath your tub. It speaks through your pipes when you're half asleep. If you hear it, if you answer, it will wear your face too. And when it does, they'll never know you're gone. Just remember, you talk first. Story 6. My reflection started moving on its own. By you/hollow behind glass. I first noticed it 2 weeks ago. I was brushing my teeth. Nothing unusual, just the quiet hum of the bathroom fan and the sting of mini foam when something felt off. I couldn't explain it at first, just a weight in the air, like the pressure before a thunderstorm. I leaned closer to the mirror, and my reflection blinked. But I didn't. It was a tiny delay, maybe half a second, but once you notice something like that, you can't unsee it. I froze, toothpaste dripping down my chin, and stared at myself. My reflection stared back. Same expression, same clothes, same posture, perfectly mirrored. Then it smiled. I didn't. I stumbled backward, heart in my throat. eyes never leaving the glass. The reflection reset instantly, mirroring me again, mouth closed, fear on its face. Just like mine. I told myself it was a trick of the light. Or maybe I was tired. I hadn't been sleeping well. Work was stressful, and the apartment above me had a new tenant with heavy boots and no sense of time. Still, I avoided mirrors for a day or two. Then the dreams began. Always the same. I'm walking through my apartment at night. Everything's normal, except the mirrors are all wrong. They're windows now, into a version of my apartment that's dimmer, older, wrong. The furniture is in the same place, but decayed, warped. My reflection walks behind me, not in sync, but following, watching, and sometimes it taps on the glass. 3 soft knocks. Like it wants in. I wake up sweating. Every time, at exactly 3:33 a.m. The following morning, I covered the bathroom mirror with a towel. That night, I heard movement in the walls, like something crawling, slow and careful, behind the plaster. I put my ear to the wall and heard breathing. Soft, rhythmic. I told myself I was losing it, until I looked in the microwave door while making tea, and saw myself standing still, not holding a cup, just smiling. I dropped the mug. It shattered on the tile, tea burning my ankle, but I didn't notice the pain. My eyes were locked on the reflection in the microwave door. It was still smiling. I wasn't. I lifted my hand slowly, waving it in front of my face. My reflection didn't move. It just kept smiling. Then, as if noticing my reaction for the first time, it tilted its head. Not curious, not playful, delighted, like it had been waiting for me to realize how long it had been there. I slammed the microwave shut, ran to the bathroom. The mirror was still covered, thank God. But even with the towel in place, I could see something pressing against the other side, bulging the fabric ever so slightly, like a fingertip testing paper. I didn't touch it, didn't breathe. I just turned and walked out, locking the door behind me. I stayed up the rest of the night, every reflective surface in the apartment draped or hidden. TV, windows, even my phone screen. Still, I felt it, like a current humming just beneath the world. A presence watching from the other side of the glass. At 3:33 a.m., something knocked on the bathroom mirror. 3 taps. Precise. Measured. I didn't answer. But the next morning, I found the towel on the floor and the mirror perfectly clean. Too clean. My landlord dropped by later to collect rent. I almost didn't answer the door, but I needed to know if I was spiraling, losing my grip. I asked her casually, "Hey, have you ever had issues with the mirrors here?" She went silent, then said, "Bathroom." I nodded. She sighed and rubbed her eyes. "You should break it. Tape it up. Whatever. Just don't let it see too much of you. That's when it starts getting ideas." I asked her what she meant. She only muttered, "I've seen 3 tenants lose themselves in that thing. And the one before you never even moved out. Just vanished." I asked her what she did. She said, "I don't look anymore." Then she left. Now I keep every reflective surface covered. But the thing inside doesn't care anymore. I saw it last night, watching me from a window. Only I live on the 3rd floor, and the fire escape has been broken since I moved in. I am unraveling. I feel it every hour now. Tugs at the edges of my thoughts, like threads being plucked from a fraying sweater. I can't concentrate at work. I find myself staring at blank monitors, seeing faint impressions of a face in the glare. Not mine, his, because it is a he now. I'm sure of that. The reflection isn't just mimicking me anymore. It's becoming me. Sharper jawline, eyes a little darker, taller maybe. Every glimpse I catch, he looks more confident, like he's enjoying wearing me like a costume. 3 nights ago, I fell asleep with the closet mirror uncovered. Only for 10 minutes, I swear. I jolted awake to the sound of breathing from the glass. The mirror was facing me across the room, and for one paralyzing second, I saw him there. Closer, smiling. His hand against the glass, fingers splayed. Then he moved, not like a reflection, but forward into the mirror, like he was walking deeper into it. And I swear the glass rippled like water. I threw a blanket over it. I should have smashed it. Instead, I started researching. There are forums, posts buried deep, mostly deleted now, about mirror dwellers. People who claim their reflections started disobeying. That they watch, then imitate, then replace. One post from a user called at GlassEater33 stood out. The last entry read, "They don't come from inside the mirror. They come from underneath it. You're not looking into another world. You're looking into a skin they're growing. A shell. Once it's done, they wear you like a coat." That post was from someone named Kyle Minner. A missing persons report online said he vanished in 2012. His apartment? My building. 2 floors down. Yesterday, I finally tried to break the bathroom mirror. It didn't shatter. The glass bent, like a thick sheet of plastic. And beneath the surface, I saw eyes. Dozens of them, all watching me. Then the reflection spoke. "Don't ruin this," it whispered. Its mouth moved differently than mine, and it smiled wider than humanly possible. I backed away, screaming, but the reflection stayed put. Then, ever so calmly, it lifted its finger and traced a word on the inside of the mirror. Soon, I left the apartment that night. Didn't pack a bag, didn't lock the door, just grabbed my wallet and ran. I checked into a cheap motel 20 minutes away, a place with no decorative mirrors, no chrome fixtures. The clerk gave me a key without looking up, muttering something about late ones always running from something. The room was dim, plain. A small square of reflective metal above the sink was the only threat. I duct taped a towel over it before even taking off my shoes. I slept, deeply, and I dreamt of him. He stood in my apartment, wearing my clothes, smiling as he watered my dying houseplants. He didn't mimic me now. He was me, better me. He moved with purpose. He spoke to people I didn't know, neighbors, co-workers, laughing like he'd always belonged. Then he turned toward the dream me. He waved. His eyes were mine, but lit with something cold. "I like it here," he said. "Stay where you are. You're not needed anymore." I woke up screaming, rushed to the sink, yanked down the towel. He was there, in the metal's dull shine, clear as glass, not quite matching my movement, not smiling anymore, just staring, head tilted ever so slightly. My phone buzzed. A voicemail from my landlord. Her voice was shaky. You came by earlier, but I think I was half asleep. Just wanted to say, the plumbing's been acting weird since you left. Also, your eyes look different today. Just wanted to check in. I never visited her. He did. I booked another motel that night, this one farther out in the woods. No meters. I double-checked, but at 3:33 a.m., I woke to the sound of glass cracking. Hairline fractures raced across the black screen of the turned-off TV. Lines forming in careful, spiraling shapes, glyphs almost. And in the center of the web of fractures, his face pressing forward from beneath. His voice was inside my head. "Your shell was tight, but you've stretched it for me." I grabbed the TV and smashed it against the floor. Sparks flew, plastic crumpled. Silence. I left again. I don't know where I'm going anymore. Every reflection now shows him. Gas station windows, car mirrors, even puddles on the road. He's closer each time. And sometimes, just sometimes, he's not alone. Behind him, I see others. Reflections of people long gone. Mouths stitched closed. Eyes pleading through cracked glass. I've stopped trying to sleep. It doesn't matter where I run. He finds me. Not him exactly, but his image. His presence. There's something wrong with the reflections now. They feel like eyes, windows, not of light, but of intent. I walked past a car in a parking lot yesterday, and its side mirror didn't show the sidewalk behind me. It showed my apartment, and him waving from the window. I smashed the mirror with a brick. That night, I got a text. Unknown number. Temper, smiley face. I should have changed my number, but I think it wouldn't matter. He's not on the phone. He's in me. We're just outside. He's learning to replace. I found another online forum, deep web this time. A user named mirror_me described the same events. He saw his reflection disobey. He covered all the glass. He ran. He even tried self-harm, hoping to weaken the connection. His last post was just coordinates. It led to a house not far from my motel. I drove there. It was boarded up, abandoned. Inside, the walls were scratched with words over and over in fading Sharpie. "IT is not you." In the living room, a shattered mirror. No body, no blood, but scrawled in the dust was a fresh handprint. Mine. I left, but the coordinates burned into me. I think he wanted me to see that. A warning? A flex? Maybe both. I now see him everywhere, even in people. My coworker asked if I was okay yesterday, but her reflection in the window didn't blink. It just stared unbroken, watching me. Another woman in a diner smiled as she poured my coffee. Her reflection turned and walked away. The lines between worlds are thinning. He's not confined to the mirrors anymore. He's leaking through, like water finding cracks in plaster. He called me again. This time, I heard his voice through the phone speaker. Static heavy, soft. I'm nearly done baking. What do you mean? I whispered. He laughed. Every second you fear me. Every time you check the mirror, I become more complete. You're painting me with your attention, sculpting me with your doubt. Then silence. I looked into the rearview mirror after I hung up. He was in the back seat. I spun around. No one there. But the scent of my apartment filled the car. Cedar, cleaning solution, and something burnt. He's stepping through, and I'm starting to forget which of us is the original. I woke up this morning with blood on my hands. Not a metaphor. It was smeared across my palms, sticky and half-dried. My nails were cracked. Under one thumbnail, a sliver of glass. No wounds on me, but something had happened. Something I couldn't remember. I checked my motel room. The mirror above the sink was gone. Only jagged remnants clung to the frame, and behind them, something dark. A void that pulsed with low vibrations, like a heartbeat from another dimension. I must have shattered it, but I didn't remember doing it. That's the part that scares me most now. The memory gaps. The stretches of time where I'm not sure I'm still the one steering the wheel. I called an old friend, Jason, someone I hadn't spoken to in over a year. He picked up after 3 rings. You okay, man? I couldn't answer right away. Finally, I said, I think I'm losing myself. Where are you? I told him. He drove up that afternoon. When he saw me, his face changed. You look different. He didn't mean weight loss. Not a bad haircut. It was deeper than that. He didn't say anything else. We sat in the parking lot for an hour. I didn't tell him everything, just fragments. The reflection, the dreams, the feeling that I was being duplicated. When I paused, he asked something that made my stomach turn. When was the last time you looked at your shadow? I didn't understand. Until later that night. I sat on the bed, the lights low, staring at the wall. My shadow, cast by the table lamp, was off. It twitched when I didn't move. It scratched at its head while mine stayed still. Then it turned around and looked at me. No face, just outline. But it waved. I screamed and switched off the light. Total darkness. I didn't sleep. Jason knocked in the morning. He said he was going to grab coffee. I nodded. As he left, I glanced in the small patch of mirrors still on the bathroom wall. He was standing behind me. Not Jason. Him. His head tilted to the left, mouth curved too far upward. I'm almost ready, he whispered. I turned. No one. But when I walked outside, Jason's car was still there. Door open. Keys inside. No Jason. In the rearview mirror, I saw myself. Smiling. But my mouth wasn't moving. Jason never came back. I waited for hours. Called his phone dozens of times. No response. No voicemail. Just dead air. I walked the motel grounds. Asked the clerk if he'd seen anything. He looked confused. Saw you leave this morning, he said. Didn't see anyone else with you. I insisted. Showed him the car. The parking spot. But he just stared, like I was speaking a language he'd only heard in dreams. So I opened the car. Everything was still there. Jason's wallet. His hoodie in the back seat. His phone, screen cracked in the corner. But the pictures on it. They were all of me. Every photo in the gallery, hundreds of them, were candid shots of me. Eating, sleeping, brushing my teeth, standing at windows. In some, my face was turned just slightly toward the camera, like I knew he was watching. But in many of the photos, I wasn't alone. He was behind me. The reflection, the other me. In mirrors, glass doors, the shiny side of Kettle, blurred and smiling. Always smiling. And in the very last photo, one taken in the motel bathroom, he was reaching out. One hand extended toward the camera. Jason must have been standing where I am now. The timestamp was 3:33 a.m. My head started spinning. I took the phone to the police station. They said Jason didn't exist. No ID match. No registered vehicle. No record of our call, even though I showed them the log. They ran my ID and told me my real name didn't come up either. They asked me to stay for questioning. I ran, and I haven't stopped. I've been staying in abandoned places now. Old barns, storage sheds, tunnels anywhere without glass or metal. I try not to see myself. I bathe in darkness. But sometimes I still feel him, like fingers brushing the inside of my skull, like whispers that echo inside the space between my thoughts. Last night I spoke to him, not on purpose, just a whisper in the dark. Please stop. And from the reflective side of an unplugged television, he answered. You're the one who begged to disappear, he said. I just gave you what you wanted. I shook my head. You're not real. But his grin widened. Neither are you anymore. And I swear, something shifted inside me. My breath caught. My vision shimmered. For half a second, I didn't know where I ended and he began. I've been writing this in a journal. Pen and paper. No screens. No reflections. But even the ink looks wrong now. Like it's watching me. I caught a glimpse of myself in a puddle this morning. And I didn't blink. My reflection stood still. Then turned. And walked away. I screamed until my throat tore. But he never looked back. I don't know where I am now. I stopped counting the days. I stopped looking for places to hide. I don't even know what's real anymore. My reflection keeps calling. It taps on the windows when I'm not looking. It moves behind me in the shadows. It waits. The worst part is I can't escape it. I've been everywhere, through dark alleys, abandoned houses, deep woods, but it always finds me. Every time I look at any surface reflective enough, I see him. Watching. He's becoming more complete now. Every movement, every glance. It's like I'm feeding him, making him stronger. I can feel him behind my eyes, in my pulse, in my very bones. I don't know what he wants, but I can't stop him. And worst of all, he knows it. He's becoming me. I don't even think I can fight it anymore. I am Sora. If you see me, don't look. Don't blink. It's already too late for me. Story 7. My grandpa's radio only plays station from the past. By you/dead dial tone. When my grandfather passed away, he left me his cabin and an old shortwave radio. The cabin was deep in the pines, near a lake that had no name on modern maps. He'd lived there for the last decade of his life, almost completely off-grid. No internet, no TV, no cell service. Just him, a stack of notebooks, and that damned radio. He used to say, all the ghosts I need come through the static. I thought it was a joke. The day I moved in, I found the radio on the kitchen counter. A dented, heavy thing with a thick antenna and tuning dial that clicked with stubborn resistance. Its power cord had been spliced and rewired so many times it looked like a science experiment. I turned it on out of curiosity. At first, just static, then faintly music, old, scratchy, like it had been recorded on wax. I tuned the dial carefully, expecting to hear some low-power hobbyist transmission. Instead, a voice crackled through. And that concludes our 1934 broadcast of the Fireside Hour. Good night, ladies and gentlemen. The hairs on my arms stood up. I checked the dial. It was resting between known frequencies somewhere off the charts. No station ID, just that clear, aged voice. I brushed it off as an old rebroadcast. Maybe someone was playing archive shows from a private collection. But the next night, it happened again. This time, a news report. Allied forces pushing in Normandy. Then silence. Then a chilling laugh, far too close to the mic. I stopped turning the radio on after that. Until 2 nights later, when it came on by itself. I woke to static echoing through the cabin at 3:11 a.m. The volume was low, like a whisper. I crept out of bed and walked into the kitchen. The radio glowed faintly, casting green light against the wall. The voice spoke again. If you're hearing this, you're already part of the broadcast. Then static. I unplugged it. The light stayed on. The plug dangled from my fingers. Still, the radio hummed. Its dial glowed soft green, and the speaker hissed with low static, like someone breathing through cloth. I stood there for a long time, unsure what to do. Eventually, I wrapped the cord around the radio, shoved it in the cabinet under the sink, and slammed the door shut. The sound didn't stop. If anything, it got clearer. That night, it played a baseball game. Announcers shouting names I didn't recognize, describing plays with ancient cadence, phrases like crack of the willow and a real swell dive. The crowd cheered in warbled distortion. It went on for 3 innings, then cut to a commercial for Lucky Strike cigarettes. And then, silence, followed by a voice I'll never forget. You can turn it off, but it already knows your name. I moved the radio into the shed the next morning. I didn't want it anywhere near me while I slept. That evening, I took a walk around the lake. The pine trees were tall, old, whispering in the wind like they were passing secrets. I thought maybe I was just unraveling. The isolation, the stress of the funeral, too much caffeine. Then I saw it, a figure on the opposite bank, barely visible through the trees, standing perfectly still. I waved, but it didn't move. It wasn't shaped quite right, taller than it should have been, with arms too long. But I blinked and it was gone. When I got back, the front door was open, and the radio was on the kitchen counter again, playing. From our broadcast archives, 1946. Do not adjust your dial. We've been waiting for you. My blood ran cold. I picked the thing up and smashed it on the floor. Once, twice. The third time cracked the casing and sent the dial spinning loose. The speaker let out a shriek like a woman caught in a storm. Then silence. Finally, or so I thought, until that night when I woke up to whispering, not through the walls, from inside my bedroom mirror. It repeated my name, then said, "You broke the speaker, but not the signal." I stayed perfectly still. The mirror sat across the room, a simple rectangle above the dresser. Nothing fancy, but the whisper didn't come from the room. It came from inside the glass. I could hear the voice curling behind the reflection, like it was echoing through a tunnel of time. I covered it with an old bedsheet and left the cabin that morning. I drove into town to the public library. It was the only place I could think of that might hold answers. I searched old newspapers for anything I could find on the lake, the cabin, or my grandfather. After an hour, I found a small article from 1981. Local man claims to hear wartime broadcasts from nowhere. The photo was grainy, but it was clearly Grandpa. Younger. He stood beside the radio, holding a strange notebook in his hand. The article was short, mostly mocking. Said he'd spent years recording strange frequencies from the same shortwave unit. Claimed the radio spoke to him in dreams. The paper called it a hermit's hoax. The librarian saw what I was reading and paused. "You knew him?" I nodded. "He wasn't lying," she said quietly. "My dad was a ham radio guy. Swore he picked up transmissions from your grandpa's cabin. He couldn't explain. Stuff that hadn't aired in decades. Sometimes voices that answered back. That night, I dug through the attic. I found a trunk filled with Grandpa's journals. Hundreds of entries. It's not a radio. It's a window. The signal is older than language. The broadcast doesn't transmit sound. It transmits memory. One page was torn violently down the middle. The remaining half read. When it finally plays your own voice, you have to run. You have to. And it ended. I tried calling a friend back home, just to hear someone real, but my phone refused to connect. I swear the dial tone changed, lower, distorted. And then someone answered. Not my friend. My own voice, breathing heavily. Whispering, I missed the lake. I threw the phone across the room. It rang again, without power, without a SIM card. The screen lit up. Incoming transmission. Source, 11.3 megahertz. Identity, you. I didn't sleep. And at 3:11 a.m., the wind howled through the trees. And the radio, broken, split open, unplugged, began to speak again. Time is thin here. You've opened it. The broadcast remembers. I should have left that night. But something in me needed to know the truth. I needed to know what my grandfather had heard, what he'd let into his life, and now apparently mine. So I put the radio back together, as best I could. The casing was cracked. One of the dials was crooked, the antenna bent. Still, when I touched it, a warmth pulsed through the metal. Not electric, organic, like holding a living thing. I turned it on. Static. Then, faintly, music again. Old jazz. Trumpet low and sweet. The kind of thing you'd expect to find in a smoky 1940s lounge. I let it play. The cabin felt quieter with it on, like it was watching, yes, but no longer hiding. Then came a voice. Do you remember the train? I froze. I hadn't told anyone about that. The train station. My 7th birthday. The day my mom vanished for 2 hours, then returned with tears in her eyes and blood on her sleeve. She never spoke of it again. That memory lived in me like a scar I never looked at directly. The radio continued. She told them not to take you. She offered herself. They took her anyway. And you forgot. I stood chest height, breath shallow. The next sound was her voice. My mother, singing the lullaby she used to hum when I was sick. The one I hadn't heard since she died 10 years ago. Every note was perfect. Every syllable just right. You left the door open, she whispered. The radio fell silent. Then a loud snap, like a switch flipping. The lights in the cabin died. Outside, something moved across the porch. I held my breath. Heavy footsteps. Vet sounds. Not one set. Multiple. Dozens. They passed the windows, casting impossible shadows. Figures too tall, too thin, with limbs that bent the wrong way. I stayed still. Then one of them spoke. Not aloud. From the radio. Let us in. You already invited us. Every time you tuned in, you turned the key. A single knock at the door. Then a second. Then a third from inside the house. I ran. Out the back. Through the woods, barefoot and shaking. I didn't stop until I hit the lake. It was calm. Still. Too still. And in its glassy surface, I saw the cabin behind me. Burning. But in the reflection, the front door stood wide open. And something stepped out. The thing that stepped out wasn't human. Not anymore. It wore a coat that looked like mine. Same torn sleeves. Same faded color. But the arms beneath it were too long. The shoulders sloped wrong. Its head hung forward like it was too heavy to lift, and around it the air shimmered, like heat waves on pavement, but in the dead cold of night. It didn't look at me, but its reflection did. In the lake's surface, its head rose slowly, unnaturally, and turned directly toward me. I stumbled back, slipped on the mud. The cabin, reflected behind the thing, was no longer burning. It was whole. Lights on, windows glowing. And in the doorway stood my grandfather, smiling. That was impossible. He died 2 weeks ago. I'd seen his body. I'd closed his casket. But there he was, waving to me like I'd just come home for summer break. I blinked. Now he was beside the creature, their reflections standing still. But the Real shore was empty. I turned and ran again, deeper into the woods. I didn't stop until dawn. When I finally returned, the cabin was gone. Not destroyed, not burned, just not there. An empty clearing, no foundation, no astis, as if it had never existed. But the radio was there, sitting upright in the grass, clean and untouched. I approached slowly. Its dial glowed. The voice returned. The broadcast isn't a transmission. It's a timeline. I dropped to my knees, exhausted, broken. The air felt heavier than it had any right to be. I looked up and noticed the trees surrounding the clearing were wrong. Different species, different shapes. Trees I hadn't seen before. Older, thicker. The sun was in the wrong position. I checked my watch. It was dead. I checked my phone. July 3rd, 1945. Impossible. I screamed, tried to reset it, but every app, every message, even a lock screen, all reflected a world that no longer matched mine. I sat in that clearing until nightfall. The radio played softly beside me. A new voice now. Mine. But not me. You should never have turned it on. This is how it learns. It doesn't want listeners, it wants hosts. And then the sound of breathing. Right behind me. I turned, but no one was there, except in the corner of my eye, a shimmer like a silhouette made of radio static. It twitched, buzzed, and disappeared. But the radio? Still warm, still humming, still remembering. I haven't left the clearing in 3 days. Or maybe it's been longer. The sun rises too fast here. Or too slow. I can't tell anymore. My phone loops the same hour, 10:38 a.m., over and over. No notifications. No service. Just the quiet hum of the radio sitting inches from my knee. It talks more now. Sometimes it plays broadcasts I remember hearing as a child, like they were pulled from my memory. A cartoon jingle I hadn't heard in decades. A newscaster reporting on my elementary school's fire drill. Even my mother's voice, calling me in for dinner. It's almost time, she says now, her voice hollow by static. Kumain, you've always belonged here. I don't eat anymore. I don't feel hungry. I don't feel tired either, just muted. Like I'm the one being tuned out. Like I'm becoming part of the noise. I opened one of Grandpa's journals again last night. A new page had appeared. It wasn't there before. If you're reading this, the broadcast has chosen you. The cabin wasn't a house. It was an anchor, a tether. You destroyed it, and now it's adrift. You're adrift. On the next page, when it learns enough of you, it broadcasts you back. I dropped the journal. The radio clicked. Welcome to the 2025 Overnight Signal. Tonight's featured story, a man who wandered too far from home. A man who mistook memory for meaning. And then I heard myself, describing the lake, the cabin, the voice, word for word, everything I'd said over the past week. Every fear, every panic. Broadcasted. Live. I tried to smash the radio again. This time it bled. Red fluid ran from the speaker like syrup. It screamed. Not electronic feedback. A human scream. A voice I didn't recognize. Then my own scream echoed back seconds later. I collapsed, sobbing. And then I heard the trees speak. Not in words, just in rhythm. Their creaking branches started to mimic the static patterns. A forest of antennas, tuning in. I ran, but the clearing never ends. It loops, like the dial of the radio. I walked for hours and returned to the same place. Now, every time I turn around, something has moved. The journal inches closer to the radio. The antenna grows longer, and the air feels thinner. I think I'm being recorded. All the time. I think I'm becoming the next broadcast. Last night, I heard the world end. Through the static. It began as a distant rumble, like thunder turned inside out. Then the voice returned, mine, but deeper, hollow, like it was being played from a warped cassette left in the sun too long. You stayed too long. Now you're signal, not sender. I screamed, tore my skin, tried to wake up, but there was no waking. This is the dream, the echo, the recording played over and over through a dead machine built to pierce time. The journal is full now. Pages I didn't write describe moments I haven't yet lived. Walking barefoot through static dunes, swimming in rivers that only exist on frequencies no one can hear. Every night, the broadcast adds more. I no longer sleep. I buffer. My thoughts aren't linear. They skip, stutter, loop. I started muttering code numbers in my sleep. When I speak out loud, it echoes before I finish. I'm becoming pre-recorded. Just now, I tried to run again. I reached the edge of the woods. The trees parted. On the other side, a living room. Familiar. A couch I used to nap on in college. A coffee stain I made sophomore year. My old cat, asleep on a sunlit patch of carpet. A memory, playing like a projection in space. And sitting on the couch, me, younger, smiling, staring directly at me, though my back was turned. Then his lips moved. I wondered how long it would take to find you. I bolted back into the trees. But when I turned around, the room was still there, burning at the edges like old film catching fire. The radio spoke again. We've reached the end of the recording. Time to rewind. And the trees reversed. Wind blowing backward. Birds flying in reverse arcs. The sky darkened, then brightened, then darkened again. I screamed, "Let me out." The journal flipped to its final page. For words, scrawled in ink that smelled like ozone. You were always here. And below it the date, July 3rd, 1945. Again, the same loop, the same entry. I looked at my hands. They flickered, faded, returned. I touched the radio. It sighed and played the first thing I ever heard in this place. And that concludes our 1934 broadcast of the Fireside Hour. Good night, ladies and gentlemen. And I knew I had become this signal. If you ever find a radio that hums when it's off, leave it. If it calls your name, don't answer. If it plays memories you forgot you had, destroy it. Because once you tune in, it tunes back. You're not just a listener, you're a participant. A voice in a machine, an echo in a loop. I don't know who I was anymore. Just that I'm part of the broadcast now. My words, my thoughts, my screams are someone else's late-night curiosity. If you're hearing this, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to become a story. But that's all we are in the end. Voices in the dark. And static that remembers. Do not adjust your dial. This is how it begins. Story 8. The smiling thing under my bed isn't imaginary anymore. By you/dreams bleed sugar. I was 7 the first time I saw the thing under my bed. You might think that's typical for a kid, scared of the dark, hearing creaks in the floorboards, letting the imagination run wild. But I wasn't that kind of kid. I didn't believe in monsters. I believed in logic, in science, in the way things were supposed to work. But that night, something changed. It was past midnight, and I'd just woken up from a bad dream. I rolled over, eyes adjusting to the faint night light glow. Everything looked normal. Books on the shelf, toys scattered across the rug, the closet door slightly ajar like always. Then I heard it, a whisper, low and sticky, like honey mixed with gravel. Still awake? I froze. Every instinct told me to scream, but I didn't. I slid quietly out of bed and dropped to my knees, slowly lifting the edge of the blanket that hung over the side. And there it was. 2 eyes, yellow-white and gleaming like rotting pearls. A mouth too wide, stretched ear to ear, packed with too many teeth. Its head was almost flat, as if pressed by years of hiding. And it was smiling. I didn't run. I whispered, "You're not real." And it giggled. Not yet. The next morning, I told my parents. They dismissed it, of course. Said it was a nightmare. My dad even checked under the bed, made a show of it. "See? Nothing here but dust bunnies and socks." He chuckled, but I knew better. The next few nights, I stayed up, blanket pulled tight, eyes locked on the space between mattress and floor. I left snacks, notes, drew pictures of what I'd seen. It always responded. Sometimes the food was gone, replaced with little teeth. Not human ones. Too sharp, too small. Once it left a drawing in return. Me, sleeping, and it curled underneath with a heart drawn above its head. When I asked it what it wanted, it whispered, to wait, to learn you, to earn you. And then one night, it didn't show up, nor the next. Years passed. I grew up, left home, forgot about it. Until 2 weeks ago, when I moved back into my childhood room to help care for my mom. And that night, the whisper returned. Miss me, I sat bolt upright, my childhood bed creaking beneath me. The room was colder than I remembered, like something had drained the warmth straight from the walls. I wanted to believe I was dreaming, that the long days helping mom, the stress, the grief, had all twisted my mind back into old fears. But then I heard it again. You smell the same. My throat closed. I didn't move. I was 28 years old, for God's sake, but that voice, that awful whisper, cut through time like a blade through cloth. I slowly reached for the bedside lamp. Click. Light filled the room. Silence. I leaned over the edge of the bed, hesitating. Part of me, the older, reasonable part, begged not to look. But the child in me had to. I lifted the blanket. Nothing. Just the old hardwood floor, a few scuff marks, a missing sock that might have been there for a decade. I exhaled, half laughing. Then I noticed the picture. It hadn't been there when I went to sleep. A crumpled piece of yellowed notebook paper, lying just beneath the bed frame. I reached for it with trembling fingers and unfolded it. A drawing. Crayon. Shaky lines, like a child's. But unmistakable. Me, lying in bed. And under the bed, eyes like cracked eggs, teeth like needles. In the corner, it had written, I never left. You just stopped believing. I dropped the drawing. The whisper came again, closer this time. You're older now. Right. Almost ready. I turned on every light in the room. I even pushed the bed frame aside, laying my mattress directly on the floor. No shadows beneath me now. No hiding. That night, I barely slept. When I did, I dreamed of long hallways beneath my house, carved in stone, pulsing with soft red light. I wandered those halls barefoot, drawn by the sound of distant giggling, walls breathing, shadows watching. I woke up sweating, checked under the mattress. Nothing. But in the corner of the room, taped to the wall, another drawing. This time, it showed my mom sleeping, the smiling thing under her bed now, with a fresh heart drawn above its head. I ripped the drawing from the wall and checked on Mom immediately. She was snoring softly, curled up in her worn recliner with the TV murmuring in the background. Nothing under her chair. No estrange marks. No giggles. But her face, it was pale, clammy, like the blood had retreated inward. Her fingers twitched every so often, and her lips moved in her sleep, forming shapes that didn't match any words I knew. I gently shook her. "Mom," she stirred, eyes fluttered open. "You were laughing," I said. She blinked, confused. "Was I?" I nodded. She looked down at her hands. "I've been having the strangest dreams. About when you were a kid. That little friend you used to draw." My stomach turned. "You remember that?" "Sure. I used to find those creepy pictures all the time. You said it talked to you." She chuckled softly. "We thought it was just a phase." I didn't respond. She studied me. "You've seen it again, haven't you?" I hesitated, then nodded. She didn't ask any more questions. Just turned her eyes back to the TV. That night, I slept in a chair in her room. I didn't trust whatever this thing was. I thought maybe it was feeding off me. Or worse, following me. But sometime after 2 a.m., I woke to the sound of something shuffling. Not footsteps. Something dragging across the floor. And then, low, warbled humming. A nursery rhyme, coming from under Mom's recliner. I leapt up and yanked the chair forward. Nothing. Just dust and silence. But Mom was smiling in her sleep now. A wide, unnatural grin. I backed out of the room and found another drawing pinned to my bedroom door. This time, it was a tunnel. Deep and spiraling. Carved out of bone. At the bottom of it, drawn in red crayon, was a tiny stick figure labeled me. Above the tunnel, a note. "I'm building you a home." That night, I dreamed of falling. Endlessly. And something waiting at the bottom with arms wide open. The next morning, I packed my things. Whatever this was, this nightmare come alive, this parasite of childhood fears, I wasn't going to feed it. I'd leave. Stay at a motel. Somewhere sterile and bright, with hard tile floors and zero shadows. But as I zipped my duffel bag, something sharp pricked my finger. I winced and reached inside. A tooth. Small. Jagged. Still wet. Dozens of them spilled out, rolling across the floor like beads. All with tiny red roots, like they'd just been pulled. I stumbled back, bile rising in my throat. On the inside of the duffel flap was another note, scribbled in crayon. "Don't go. You make me lonely again." I left anyway. Drove an hour away. Booked the most well-lit hotel room I could find. Slept with the lights on. TV blasting late night infomercials just to drown out the silence. At 3:11 a.m., I woke to the sound of breathing. Deep, guttural, close. I sat up, heart racing. The mattress beside me rose and fell, as if someone invisible lay beside me. I scrambled off the bed, flipped the sheets. No one, but on the pillow, a crayon. Red, still warm. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. Next morning, I found claw marks under the hotel bed. 6 grooves, evenly spaced, like fingers, or something trying to hold on as it was dragged away. The staff said they had no idea, that I'd been the only guest in that wing of the building, that the security cameras had glitched during the night. I drove home. I wish I could say it was because I was brave. It wasn't. It was because every reflection I passed, rearview mirror, store windows, even puddles on the street, started to smile. Not my smile. Its smile. I returned to my childhood house and found the front door ajar. Inside, my mom sat perfectly still in her recliner, staring at the TV. The screen was off, but faint giggling echoed from the speakers. When I touched her shoulder, she turned slowly to face me. Her eyes were solid black. Her voice whispered, layered over with something else. "He missed you so much." I backed away from my mother, my legs trembling. She didn't follow, just stared, eyes like ink, mouth curled into a slow, aching smile. I whispered her name. "Mom." She blinked once, and her lips moved, but the voice that came out wasn't hers. "He waited. You left him so long." I ran into my old room, slamming the door behind me. I pushed a desk in front of it. My breaths came short and fast. The air in the room felt dense, like the shadows were heavier than they should have been. Then I heard it, a low humming, from under the bed. I hadn't put the mattress back on the frame. There wasn't under anymore, just flat ground. But the floor had changed. A narrow crack now ran beneath the mattress, like the planks had been pulled slightly apart. And from that slit came a whisper. "Almost ready. The home is nearly done." I got down on my hands and knees, pressed my ear to the gap. There were echoes down there, voices overlapping, layered like an old cassette recording over and over itself. Some cried, some laughed, some sounded like me. I staggered back, and then the journal appeared. My childhood diary, one I hadn't seen in 20 years, lay open on the bed. The entry was dated for tomorrow. It read, "Tonight, I join him. It's time. He's been patient. He built me a place. I'm going under, and I won't be coming back." Below that, a drawing, a stairway leading into a mouth. At the bottom, a stick figure holding hands with a taller one, both smiling. I started ripping pages out, burning them. But each time I tore one free, a new page turned by itself. Same message, same drawing. And then I heard scratching from beneath the floor. Slow, rhythmic, like fingers dragging across wood. The closet door creaked open behind me. No wind, no draft, just the sound of something breathing inside it. He only wants what he gave, a friend. I turned to face it, but the light bulb exploded above me, and the darkness grinned. I don't remember passing out. I must have, because when I woke up, it was daylight, and I was back in bed, perfectly tucked in, not a page out of place. The journal was gone. The scratch marks on the floor, the crack beneath the mattress, gone. My mom, sitting at the kitchen table, sipping coffee like nothing happened. I wanted to believe it had all been a dream. I wanted to, but as I stood and stretched, something shifted beneath my feet. Not a creak, not a pop, a sigh. A low exhale that vibrated through the floorboards like breath against my spine. I didn't tell my mom anything. I just sat across from her, stirring tea I didn't drink. We spoke about meaningless things, weather, groceries, a neighbor's new dog. But every so often I caught her eyes drifting, not to me but behind me, to the corners, to the walls, as if she expected something to step out and say hello. When I finally asked her about that night, about the black eyes, the voice, she smiled gently and said, "What makes you think I'm still your mother?" She laughed like it was a joke. I didn't. That night, I nailed my bedroom door shut. I surrounded the bed with salt, kept the lights on, flashlight in hand, holy water under my pillow. But none of it mattered. At exactly 3:11 a.m., the floorboards split open, quietly, not violently like wood breaking, but smoothly like a mouth opening after a long sleep. A seam formed down the middle of the room, and from it rose that awful whisper. "Come home." I sat frozen in bed as the air grew thick and hot. Then a hand emerged, pale, too long, fingers tapering into dark claws. It pressed gently on the floor and pulled the rest of its body through. The smiling thing, not crawling now, walking, taller than I remembered. Its head scraped the ceiling. Its limbs cracked as it unfolded, stretching out from years of contortion. Its eyes locked on mine with a hunger that had waited. And then it spoke in a voice that echoed with every version of me it had ever seen. "You're ready." I couldn't move. Not because I was frozen with fear, though I was, but because something invisible pressed against my limbs, heavy and warm, like invisible ropes wrapping around my wrists and ankles. The smiling thing stepped closer, its joints bending the wrong way, head tilted like a curious dog. Its voice was in my head and all around me at once. "You dreamed of me for years. You made me. Now I make you." The room around us began to change. The wallpaper peeled back, revealing wet stone beneath. The ceiling dissolved into black void, and the floor split wider until my bed floated atop a narrow ledge, above an endless spiral of stairs made from teeth and bone. It gestured toward the pit. "Cool me. The home is ready." I screamed. The air swallowed the sound. My phone buzzed suddenly, a sharp vibration in my pocket like an electric jolt. I yanked it free. It had one notification. "Your memory has been added to the archive." And the screen flickered, then showed me, not now, but 7 years old, crying under the covers, whispering, "Please don't come out." The smiling thing leaned closer. "You kept me alive." I snapped. I reached for the lamp beside my bed, yanked it loose, and swung. The glass shattered across its face. For a moment, the smile slipped, revealing rows of writhing worms where teeth should have been. It shrieked, not in pain, but delight. still full of spark. I bolted for the window and jumped. Glass sliced my arms, the wind tore at my skin, and I landed hard on the front lawn. I ran barefoot into the street, not daring to look back. I didn't stop until I reached the edge of the woods behind our house. There I collapsed, and behind me, from the trailing movement, a dozen small figures loped to the ground, crawling out of the brush. Children. No, drawings of children. Their outlines flickering, unfinished. Some missing faces, others with blank eyes and bent limbs, all smiling. They gathered around me, whispering in harmony. You dreamed us. You forgot us. We never forgot you. And behind them, the thing emerged again, walking, grinning, holding my mother's face like a mask. Come now, it said in her voice. Time to go under. I don't know where I am anymore. The ground pulses beneath me like a heartbeat. The sky above is paper thin, drawn in crayon. The smiling thing walks beside me now, sometimes in my shape, sometimes in others. Every night, I dream in my bed, but I never wake up in it. If you find a picture under your pillow, burn it. If you hear giggling beneath your mattress, don't answer. Because once it learns your name, it builds your stairway. And when it's done, you'll smile too. Forever. Story 9. I found a VCR tape marked play when alone. By you/analog wound. Last weekend, I helped clean out my uncle's place after he passed. He'd lived alone for the last 20 years in a crumbling house on the edge of town, one of those places that always felt damp no matter the season. He was an odd man, tinkered with old tech, never owned a cell phone, and had a wall of VCRs stacked like altars. We figured he was a hoarder, but most of what we found was organized. Precise, labeled, almost ritualistic. I was sorting a milk crate of tapes when I saw it. A blank cassette with a crooked white sticker. On it, in red marker. Play when alone. No other markings. No date. No title. Just that. Something about it made my skin crawl, but I couldn't let it go. I slipped it into my backpack when no one was looking. That night, back home, I dug my old VCR out of storage, hooked it up to the TV, and slid the tape. At first, just static. Then the screen flickered to black. White text appeared. Thank you for watching. Cut to a shot of a room. My room. It was empty. Camera angle low, as if peering from a closet. I paused the tape. My pulse spiked. It wasn't a replica or a trick. It was my room. Same scuffed floorboards. Same crooked lamp. Even a laundry I'd thrown on the floor that morning. But I lived alone. I hit play again. The shot lingered for 20 more seconds. Then cut to black. Then, he's watching now. I stopped the tape and turned on every light in the apartment. Searched every closet, every corner, even the crawl space. Nothing. Eventually, I convinced myself it was a prank. An elaborate hoax. Deep fake, maybe. Someone messing with me. But I kept the tape. I wish I hadn't. Because the next night, it changed. I know how insane this sounds, but I swear I didn't touch the tape. Didn't rewind it. Didn't eject it. I left it in the VCR overnight, unplugged everything, even draped a blanket over the TV like I could smother whatever was inside. But the next evening, I came home from work and the TV was on. Flickering static. No audio. Just that blank, white noise burning a hole in my living room. I yanked the plug from the wall. Still static. It took 3 hard slaps to the screen before it finally went black. Shaking, I slid the tape out. It felt wet. Not soaking, just damp like it had been sitting in a humid basement for years. Only it hadn't. The night before it had been dry. I told myself to throw it away. I even walked it out to the dumpster, tape clutched in one hand, lid lifted. But something stopped me. Curiosity. Obsession. I don't know. Instead, I took it back inside, poured a drink, and sat down. I played it again. It didn't start the same. No static. No title card. This time, it opened directly on my room, again, but from a new angle. The camera was higher now, positioned like it was mounted in the corner of the ceiling. And I was in the shot, sleeping. I choked on my drink. That was me on screen, in bed. Chest rising and falling. Timestamp at the bottom. Last night, 3:11 a.m. I stared at the footage, goosebumps prickling every inch of my body. Then, from the side of the frame, something stepped into view. Not clearly, not in focus. Just a shape, tall, dark, thin arms, no visible face. It stood there for 20 seconds, unmoving, watching me sleep. Then the footage distorted, glitched violently, and a new screen appeared. You left the window unlocked. I ran to the bedroom. Locked. Closed. Nothing inside. But on the windowsill, in the layer of dust I hadn't cleaned in weeks, a single footprint. Small. Border. Facing inward. That footprint didn't match mine. Too narrow. Too flat. And the toes, there were 6. I took a photo before wiping it away. Not because I thought anyone would believe me, but because I needed to prove it to myself. That I wasn't unraveling. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the hallway with the lights on, a kitchen knife in one hand and the tape in the other. I kept staring at it, that crooked white sticker. Play when alone. Who wrote that? Why? At 3:11 a.m., the same time from the footage, I heard the VCR click. Even unplugged, it made a noise. And the TV flickered on for a single second. Not long enough to show anything. Just long enough to let me know it was aware. The next morning, I brought the tape to my coworker, Lisa. She's a tech head, runs a retro media YouTube channel. She agreed to digitize it. I watched over her shoulder as she loaded it into her equipment. "Where'd you find this?" she asked. "My uncle's house. It's encoded weird. Like layers. Multiple video tracks interwoven. This is some real analog horror stuff." She hit play. Her screen showed her living room. Same low angle from under the couch. She frowned. "Is this a prank?" I didn't say a word. Then the audio kicked in. A voice, gargled, submerged, distorted, whispered, "You're not alone." Lisa stopped the video. "You seriously brought this to me without warning me it was haunted or something?" I shook my head. It didn't do that before. It only showed me. She ejected the tape. It was hot to the touch. She dropped it with a curse. On its label, the words had changed. The red ink was still there, but now it read, "Stop playing." She stared at it, visibly shaken. "Dude, burn that thing." I didn't. Of course I didn't. That night, I checked every closet, every corner, every mirror. Then I made the mistake of watching it again. New footage. Same room. But this time, I was awake in bed, just staring forward, unblinking. And behind me, a shape leaned from the closet, smiling. I know I never smiled like that. The version of me on the screen, awake, rigid, smiling like a doll with the corners of its mouth pulled too tight, didn't blink, didn't breathe, just stared forward while something loomed behind it, blurry and tall, its face just out of focus. I hit pause, backed up the tape. Frame by frame, I clicked forward until I caught a clearer shot of the figure's face. It wasn't blurry because of motion. It was blurry because it wasn't finished. I was like scribbles, a mouth drawn in multiple shapes at once. Like the tape couldn't decide how to present it, whether it should smile, scream, or simply open wide. I ejected the tape and shoved it into a drawer. That was 2 days ago. Since then, every time I pass a reflective surface, my TV, the microwave, even darkened windows, I see movement that isn't mine. Something almost mimicking me, but slower. Wrong. This morning, I found a fresh tape sitting on my VCR. No label, just the plastic cassette. I swear on my life. I had locked the front door, chained it, deadbolt, even pushed furniture against it before I went to bed. No one could have gotten in. I almost didn't play it, but I had to know. This one didn't start with footage. It started with text. You let him in. That was your invitation. Then it cut to black. Then a voice, not mine, not my uncle's, not Lisa's, said, "He's behind you." I dropped the remote, spun around. Nothing. But when I turned back to the TV, it was off. The tape gone. Drawer empty. I ran outside into the morning air, heart pounding, phone shaking in my hand. I texted Lisa. "Me? Did you touch the tape?" "Lisa, what tape?" "Me. The one from my uncle's house." "You digitized it." "Lisa, you okay? We haven't talked in a week." My hands went numb. I scrolled up. The entire conversation history was gone. Only one message thread left in my inbox. From an unknown number. "Keep watching." I didn't reply to the message. I turned off my phone, pulled the battery just to be safe. Then I unplugged the TV, wrapped the VCR in a blanket, and locked it in the trunk of my car. I even parked down the street, like distance would dilute whatever it was. That night, I drank until I could barely stand. I passed out on the couch with every light in the apartment blazing. At 3:11 a.m., I woke up gasping. The room was pitch black. No power. No noise. Just darkness thick enough to feel. And the TV? Somehow turned on again. A faint blue glow flickered across the room, and there on the screen, me. Live feed. Not the couch. Not the room. The angle was from inside my bedroom, which I had locked. My bedroom, where I had definitely not gone to sleep. I got up, legs trembling, and crept toward the door. Something was breathing on the other side. Not heavy or panicked, slow and measured. Like it knew I was listening. I pressed my ear to the wood. A whisper seeped through. Watching you is how I learn to wear you. I bolted, ran down the stairwell barefoot, out into the street, still in my sleep clothes. I got in my car, yanked the VCR from the trunk, and flung it into the nearest dumpster. Tapes and all. Then I drove. No destination. Just away. It didn't matter. The next night, when I checked into a motel 2 towns over, the receptionist handed me a package. No return address, she said, smiling too wide. Inside was a single tape. No label. No markings. Just the unmistakable smell of mildew and static. I left it on the dresser. Didn't touch it. Slept with the covers pulled to my throat and a knife in my hand. At 3:11 a.m., the TV powered on by itself. The tape already inside the VCR. It played a message in my voice, monotone and flat. I'm the tape now. I screamed, yanked the cord from the wall, smashed the TV with the lamp. Then, from behind me, click, another VCR, somehow in the motel nightstand. Already playing. I destroyed that one, too. Tore the cables out of the wall. Smashed the VCR against the concrete outside the motel, scattering shards across the parking lot. I must have looked insane, shirtless, bleeding from my palms, screaming at a box of wires. I drove again. Didn't care where. Kept the radio off. No music, no voices, no static. And still I felt it. In the rearview mirror, flashes of movement. Not in the car, but in the mirror itself, like it was playing a different version of reality behind glass. One where I wasn't the one driving. I checked into a cabin upstate. No TV, no internet, just a bed and a lock on the door. That night, I fell asleep with earplugs in, a flashlight taped to my chest, and a knife under the pillow. I woke at 3:11 a.m., not from sound, from a vibration. The mattress was humming, a low, mechanical frequency, like a tape reel whirring in slow motion. I peeled back the covers and saw it. A tape, ejecting from the center of the bed, not resting on it, emerging from it, like the springs themselves had spat it up. This time, there was no label, just my name carved into the plastic. I didn't play it. I drove to the nearest river and threw it in. Stood there for half an hour, watching the water ripple, convinced it was over, until I returned to the cabin and saw the message scratched into the wall above the bed. You made me. You can't unmake me. I screamed, packed, left the cabin, and drove through the night. But when I stopped at a gas station an hour later and popped the trunk to grab water, the tape was there, dry, waiting. When I got back into the car, the display screen on my dashboard lit up with one word. Play. And then it began, even without a screen. Just sound. My voice. Crying. Begging. And underneath it, something whispering. Soon we'll match. Soon you'll flicker like I do. I ripped the stereo out with my bare hands. But the tape kept playing. From inside my head. I haven't slept in days. Not really. Whenever I close my eyes, the world turns grainy, like an old video looping just out of sync. People around me start flickering. Their mouths move, but I don't hear words, only the soft hiss of static. Like they're on tape, too. Like I'm seeing through the lens now. And worst of all, I'm starting to forget what's real. Sometimes I think I'm still back in my apartment, watching that first tape. Sometimes I am the version of me in the footage, still smiling while something creeps from the closet. This morning, I woke up in a place I didn't recognize. Concrete walls, VCRs stacked to the ceiling, all of them playing me, in different moments, different versions, sleeping, crying, screaming. But none of them looked aware. They were just recordings, as if the real me had been copied 100 times, and now the original didn't matter. There was one TV, though, at the center of the room. It was off, until I stepped in front of it. Then it flickered on and showed you. Yes, you, reading this, watching, listening. The smiling man behind you isn't real yet, but he will be, because the tape never needed a machine. Only a viewer, only attention. That's the truth. The label wasn't a warning, it was an invocation. Play when alone. You followed the rules, just like me. And now, he knows where you are. If your screen glitches tonight, if you hear the soft hum of a tape rewinding, if your reflection doesn't blink when you do, don't look away. Because once the footage starts, it doesn't stop. You're part of it now. And once he records you, there's no erasing what you become. The static's louder now. Even when everything's off, I hear it, behind walls, beneath floors, inside my skull. I'm not sure I'm real anymore. Just footage flickering endlessly on some loop. He watches through glass, through screens, through you. And when he learns your rhythm, your voice, your sleep, your fear, he copies it. Then he replaces it. So if you find a tape marked play when alone, don't, because the tape is just the first frame. The real recording starts when you hit play, and he's always hungry for a new episode. Are you watching yet? Story 10. I hear knocking from inside the mirror. By you/reflected guilt. The first knock came 3 nights ago. I was brushing my teeth when it echoed 3 soft raps directly from the bathroom mirror, not the wall behind it. Inside it, I froze, toothpaste foam dribbling from my mouth. Knock, knock, knock. I stared into the glass. Nothing behind me, just my own reflection. Wide eyes, trembling hand, toothbrush still mid-scrub. I reached out and touched the mirror. Cold, still. Then, tap, tap, tap again, right where my fingers pressed. I yanked my hand back, turned off the light, slammed the door, and told myself it was in my head. But the next night, it happened again. I tried to ignore it, but the knocking got louder. More urgent. It followed a rhythm. Same pattern every time. 3 knocks, pause, 2 knocks, pause, 1 knock. Almost like code. I recorded it on my phone. Played it back later, hoping I'd capture proof of the sound. But there was nothing. Just silence. And my own shaky breathing. Last night, I covered the mirror with a blanket. No knocking. But this morning, when I pulled the blanket down, I saw something new. A word drawn in the condensation from my shower. Soon, I live alone. No one has keys but me. No one's been inside. And now, it's happening in every mirror. Not just in the bathroom, bedroom, hallway. Even the ones in reflections, like I'll see myself on my phone screen, and behind me, a flicker of movement. Sometimes the other me doesn't move quite right, like she's lagging by half a second, or smiling when I'm not. Tonight, I covered every mirror in the apartment. Towels, blankets, even aluminum foil on the smaller ones. But still, the knocking came, muffled through fabric. And now, the rhythm's changed. Not just knocks. They're scraping too, like fingernails on glass, slow and deliberate. And it's not coming from one mirror anymore. It's from all of them, in unison. I stood in the middle of the apartment, heart pounding, surrounded by soft, distant rapping. Each knock perfectly timed, a chorus of something trapped just beyond the surface. I called my mom, told her I wasn't feeling right. She offered to come over, but I said no. I didn't want whatever this was to follow her. She asked if I'd been sleeping enough. I almost laughed. Sleep? I can't close my eyes without dreaming of reflections that don't blink, that smile too wide, that press their faces to the inside of the glass until their noses flatten and their skin peels. Last night, I dreamt I was standing in front of the bathroom mirror again. Only this time, I was on the other side, looking out, watching the real me brush her teeth, completely unaware. Then she paused, stared directly at me, and smiled. When I woke up, my mouth hurt. I ran to the mirror. 2 of my molars were cracked, hairline fractures right through the enamel. I don't grind my teeth. Never have. But it felt like someone in my body had been trying to chew their way out. I'm scared to sleep now. Scared I won't wake up in the right world. Because something's coming through. I know it. I can feel it in my bones when I pass a mirror now. Like a magnet pulling at the back of my eyes. Today I tried smashing one. Just one. The bathroom mirror. I swung a hammer and shattered it completely. Glass everywhere. Blood on my arms from the flying shards. And behind the broken pieces, Not drywall. Not the wall. Just black. An endless, pulsing void. Until something moved inside it. Something shaped like me, almost crawling forward on all fours. I ran. Out of the apartment. Into the hallway. Down the stairs barefoot. Blood trailing behind me. I didn't stop until I was in my car, keys shaking in my hand. I drove. Didn't care where. I just needed to be away from the glass. I ended up in a roadside motel. Small. Dusty. A place that hadn't been updated since the 80s. I chose the room with the least number of mirrors. Still had one above the sink, though. I covered it with a towel, heart still hammering. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in bed with the lamp on, clutching the motel's Gideon Bible like it could protect me. At 3:11 a.m., I heard it again. Not from the covered mirror, from the TV screen. Knock, knock, knock. I turned the screen on, static. But in the flicker of white noise, I saw it. My reflection, sitting on the bed beside me. Only I wasn't moving. She was. She turned slowly, raised a hand, and waved. I lunged for the remote and shut it off. The screen went black, but not blank. Her face stayed, burned into the glass. Still waving. I left the motel before sunrise. Drove home with every mirror covered, every surface avoided. I didn't look at my phone screen, didn't glance at the rearview mirror. But when I got back to my apartment, the broken bathroom mirror had reassembled itself. The cracks were still there, like spiderwebs. But the glass was whole, and in its center, a note had been etched into the surface. I'm learning your skin. Since then, things have escalated. I'll catch myself in reflections, blinking at the wrong time. Mouth moving soundlessly while I stay silent. Once, I watched my reflection pick up a knife I hadn't even touched. And now I don't think it's trapped anymore. Because today, when I came home, there were wet footprints on the bathroom floor. Small, border, identical to mine, leading from the mirror to my bed. I should have run again, left the apartment, never looked back. But I didn't. I stood in the doorway, staring at those footprints. Damp smudges fading slowly into the carpet, ending right at the side of my bed, where the covers had been turned down. Like it had made itself comfortable. Like it was waiting. I tore the blankets off. Nothing underneath. Checked the closets. Empty. Checked behind every curtain, every door, even inside the fridge like a maniac. Nothing. But when I finally turned back to the mirror, now whole again, I saw her. Not me. Not anymore. The woman staring back was a near-perfect copy. Same hair, same clothes, same posture. But there was a stiffness to her, a mannequin stillness. And that smile, too wide, too fixed, like I'd been drawn on. She reached out and touched the glass. On my side, the mirror stayed cold, but I watched her fingers press through like water, ripples spreading out around her hand. She was breaking through, and I couldn't stop it. I duct taped every mirror, every reflective surface. Laptop screen, picture frames, even a tiny chrome knob on the toaster. I thought that would be enough. Until tonight, when I heard the knocking again. Not from the mirrors, from inside the walls. I leaned close to one, heard breathing, my breathing, but distorted, too fast, too shallow. She's not just watching anymore. She's living, somewhere between the reflection and the real. And I think the line that divides us is starting to wear thin. My TV turns on randomly now, always to the same footage, her walking around my apartment, wearing my clothes, mimicking my movements just a beat too slow. Sometimes, she stares directly into the lens and mouths. You're the reflection now. I smashed the TV. Didn't matter. She showed up in the microwave next. Then the black of my coffee. Then the screen of my dead phone. Every surface that can hold a version of me. She's finding them. And she's watching me fade. I call a mirror specialist today. Yeah, I know how that sounds. Desperate people do desperate things. I found a guy online who claimed to cleanse cursed glass, whatever that means. I sent him pictures of the cracked mirror, the note etched into it, and the reflections that weren't right. He replied within minutes. Cover all mirrors. Do not speak to the reflection. If it speaks first, hang fabric. Do not listen. Do not listen. Then he blocked me. But I didn't need his warning. I already knew, because last night she spoke. It started as a whisper while I was brushing my teeth. I didn't look. I stared at the floor. pretended I didn't hear it. But then she called me by my full name, first, middle, last. Sang it, mocking. Then she laughed at my voice and said, "You don't need to live in there anymore. Come inside. It's better." My eyes darted up before I could stop them. She was pressed right against the mirror, forehead smeared against the glass, lips stretched into a grin so wide it split the skin. Blood ran down the inside of the mirror, but not a drop appeared on mine. Then she tilted her head and whispered, "You'll be glass soon, too." I dropped the toothbrush and ran, locked myself in the bedroom, and then I made a terrible mistake. There's a full-length mirror in my closet door. Ide furbuten. In the dark, I turned and saw her standing behind me. But when I turned around, nothing. Only when I looked back in the mirror again did I see her. Closer now. No space between us. I covered it with a blanket and duct tape and stuffed towels into every crack. I haven't left the room since. But I hear her. Not knocking anymore. Now it's tapping. Gentle. Playful. Like a child ready to be let out of timeout. And she says my name like it's hers now. She's learning to move without the glass. And I think she's practicing wearing my skin. Because I woke up today with mirror cuts on my hands. Tiny. Clean. In the exact places she bled last night. I've started seeing her outside now. Not just in mirrors. Windows. Car doors. Storefront glass. Even puddles. Always watching. Always smiling. Sometimes waving, like we're old friends sharing a secret. She's getting stronger. This morning, I opened a fridge and screamed. There she was, in the shine of a ketchup bottle, grinning like a trophy. I dropped it. Glass everywhere. But no blood this time. Just laughter. From every surface at once. I think she's inside the apartment now. I don't mean metaphorically. I mean physically. I hear footsteps when I'm still. Breathing that doesn't match mine. Last night, I swear I saw a second shadow stretch across the kitchen wall. Long and slow, dragging its fingers as it moved. I don't think she needs a reflection anymore. She's becoming real. And I'm fading. I can't hold objects for long without feeling pulled. I glance into my reflection and see things I don't remember doing. Movements I don't recall making. Once I saw her sitting at my desk, typing a message to someone on my laptop. Why check the browser history? There were emails sent I didn't write. Posts on forums I've never visited. All of them signed with my name. She's replacing me. Slowly. I burn the mirrors. All of them. Watch them crack, melt, crumble. But today, there was a new one in the hall. Tall. Framed in black. No glass. Just a dark, rippling surface like ink in motion. When I passed it, I heard her whisper, "It's not your reflection anymore." And I believed her. Because in the ripple, I didn't see myself. I saw her. Wearing my face. Smile on my smile. But her eyes? They were dead. Like two polished stones, smooth and empty. She raised a hand, pressed it to the surface, and her fingers came through. Not all the way. Just enough. Enough to knock. Once. Twice. Thrice. I don't think I have much time left. The apartment is wrong now. The walls feel soft, like they breathe when I'm not looking. My voice echoes a second too late. The clocks tick backward. And my reflection, she, moves more naturally than I do. I feel like a visitor in my own body. Last night, I tried to call my mom again. She answered, but her voice sounded mirrored, reversed, like a recording played backward, every word sharp at the edges. Then she said, in that warped tone, "She picked you. You let her in." Click. I don't know if my mom's still alive. Or if the voice was even pretending to be her. I don't even know if I'm still here. Every photo in my house now shows her instead of me. Smiling stiffly. Eyes never quite right. And the mirror I burned? It came back. Bigger this time. The frame stretched from floor to ceiling. And now, it's not just a surface. It's a doorway. A thin membrane separating her world from mine. And it pulses like a heartbeat. I've barricaded the door, covered every reflective surface again, but it doesn't matter anymore. She knows how to cross. I woke up this morning with her handprint on my chest. Cold, damp, slightly too long in the fingers. And when I looked in the bathroom mirror, it was me, normal, for once, until I turned away, and my reflection didn't. She stayed, staring. Then she reached out from the other side, touched the glass, and mouthed, "Talk." And now I feel hollow, lighter, like she took something, like a thread connecting me to myself has been severed. I don't think I'm the original anymore. I think she stepped out. I've been dragged back in. Because when I look at mirrors now, I don't see me. I see her living my life. While I watch, from behind the glass. If you're reading this, don't look up. Don't check the screen. Don't check your reflection. Don't glance into the black of your phone when it goes dark. Because she's always looking for someone new. Someone who listens. Someone who sees her. She came through mine. She's in yours now. Behind you. Behind your smile. Soon you'll knock too. And she'll answer. And when she does, there won't be a reflection anymore. Only her. Forever.